Welcome, everyone. Get ready for a wild ride. We're going to have some fun today. I'm joined here with the apostate prophet. How you doing today? Oh, you muted yourself, of course.
I'm good. I'm good. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. So I'm going to back up, bring everyone up to speed. Daniel Haqiqatjou and I had a debate. He's a Muslim apologist. He wanted to debate child marriage, so he challenged me. The debate did not go well for them. They've been doing a lot of damage control. They did a post-debate review. I responded. And then Daniel and his faceless doctor named Abdullah decided to respond to that. And here we are again responding to them. And I was so excited watching their stream because I was like, this is going to be fun. And so I was thinking, I'm going to bring AP on because I want your reactions to this because you've not watched the stream yet, right? Correct?
Yeah, I haven't watched the last stream that they made. No.
Perfect. Because I want your reactions. I think they'll be good to see. They don't respond to a lot of the arguments I made, even though they claimed it. They keep saying, we addressed all your points. No, you didn't. You did not. You barely addressed any of the points, which I'll get to, but they spend a lot of time, most of the time actually, just trying to argue that no, child brides will not die in childbirth. That's it. That's the main point they're trying to hit on, even though I pointed out there's all these psychiatric problems, emotional distress, anxiety, depression, poor parenting skills, higher rates of divorce, suicide from child marriage. And all they're doing is going, hey guys, child marriage isn't that bad. They're not going to die. Like, that's their whole argument at this point.
This is so funny. I watched your stream in which you deconstructed their whole their initial response, and it was like 3 hours long, right? And I sat down, I listened to the whole thing. I repeated multiple parts for throughout the day, made quite a few notes on with the timestamps of certain things that you have said. And my guess was, and I'm probably right, that they are going to ignore most of what you said and just focus on a few little things, and then act like, oh, we have to. And this is a behavior that is quite common, like coming from them, especially from Daniel Haqiqatjou. I'm familiar with this. He also did this whole thing. Like when I confronted him once cold about theology, he said to me first something like, I don't have to debate you. I already know everything that you have said, everything that you have brought to the table has been debunked, and all that. And then you have seen the exchange between me and him about God's name, Yahweh, and all that. And then he was completely dumbfounded by that. And after he went away from the stream, he actually uploaded a voice recording on his Telegram account saying that I am now just bragging, which I'm not, because I brought an argument to him that he has never heard of before. And
kind of an odd admission there.
Totally,
all right.
Yeah, totally self-contradictory attitude. But this is quite normal from their side. They will act like they have completely crushed it, but we all know they didn't.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into it. I have again made time notes because we're going to jump around. We're not going to repeat their technical errors to bore the audience. A lot of times they'll make the same argument over and over again, and we only need to address it once. So let's get right into it here. Here is them starting. I'm starting at 125, and I'll play this, and then I want to show a slide after this. So we'll play for about a minute here.
We did a very thorough review. Obviously, we couldn't get to every single thing that he cited in the course of the debate, but we covered his main evidences, and showed how, they didn't really support his overall claim that minor marriage is something that is so terribly harmful and destructive on a medical basis. You basically debunked that. So he was really upset with our review. He took some of the statements that you made in the course of the 5 hours, and then he took like a microscope to each thing and wanted to say, oh, you cited a 1998 study. It was actually 1998. Like this kind of very petty responses. He ignored like most of the substance of our criticism, actually.
Okay, let's stop there so I can put this slide up I wanted to put up.
Oh, boy.
I need to remind them of what the actual criticism is here, because they don't seem to remember well. They have a very selective memory. So since they have this, I made them a slide here. Okay.
Off the get-go, they already misrepresent the whole debate.
Yes,
summarize it to something that it is not. Wow.
Daniel couldn't steelman himself in medieval armor at this point. Okay, here is what I covered in the debate in post-debate reviews. Child marriage is associated with higher levels of psychiatric disorders, higher levels of suicide, higher levels of intimate partner violence, that's domestic abuse, higher levels of divorce, inadequate parenting skills, higher levels of complications in childbirth for mothers, higher levels of complications for newborns. Now, this last one, I'm pretty sure they conceded last time with the idea of low birth weight happening in newborns. Abdullah said we can concede this point. The only thing they really focus on in this stream is one point that falls under as a subcategory of this one I have underlined here. Basically, the majority of the stream, they just try to argue, as I said, hey guys, child mothers are just not going to die when they have childbirth. They're going to survive. It's going to be okay. And therefore, you can keep abusing them despite having all these psychiatric problems, them having really bad parenting skills, more likely to divorce, like lifetime of psychiatric disorders. So let's just remind them of all the points they haven't addressed. Like in the first stream, when they were going over the study, I said it on suicide, Abdullah showed his racism and he comes out and goes, yeah, that's because they're married to Ethiopian men. And he's like, if I was married to one, I'd want to commit suicide too. Like, wow.
And that guy's supposed to be a doctor, right?
Yeah. Now, again, it's pretty clear why he's hiding his face and name, given a lot of the terrible things he has said. I'm sure if his hospital found out about some of those things, they would be a little concerned about having him work there. So it makes sense. But yeah, they have not addressed half. They're basically addressing one subcategory under this one I've underlined. That's it. And even when we get to it, you're going to see problems. They're going to spend a lot of time trying to debunk the claim that a woman or a girl under 15 is 5 times more likely to die in pregnancy. And they totally messed this up across the board. I gave them the studies to read to show where this comes from, and they didn't even read them. And I'm going to go back to those same studies and show you where they missed it and show you they're not even doing the research.
I want to say something about the whole that guy being an anonymous doctor at the very beginning. There is an issue with bringing on a supposed, self-proclaimed doctor who is entirely anonymous, and then claiming that he is a physician actually, and then bringing him on as an authority to talk about these things. Now, the guy is not claiming to go against the science and go against the medical knowledge out there and to argue for something that is contrary to what everyone knows. He is claiming that the things that he is saying are in alignment with medicine, are in alignment with science. Now, the issue here is, if we knew the name of this guy, the credentials, and actually the workplace that this guy is a physician, we could report this guy, and we could also report him to a board. I guess if he's in New York, it would be a medical board that we could report him to, who would then review the things that he said in public and would then take action against him if he is indeed promoting harmful, unacceptable things. On the other hand, he would have no problem at all if the things that he says are in alignment with modern medicine and with science. Now, he claims that the things are in alignment with science, so it shouldn't be a problem, right? Therefore, I think it should be reasonable for us to say, hey, it would be good if that guy comes out and gives us his name and his credentials and his workplace, if he is so confident, so that we can then report him, and that would not be anything bad from our sides if he is actually in line with all that is acceptable. So I'm really asking them to just expose who this guy is, so we can ignore the whole debate here and just move to the necessary authorities, who will then check if he is actually agreeing with the science or not.
I think that'd be a great idea. I think that'd be a good way to confirm their side if they're so confident with it.
Yeah.
But here we're about to get to why they're going to reject that, because it's all a conspiracy. Here we go.
Point. And this is something that is really, really important for us to emphasize. We don't want to make our entire case on the morality of minor marriage. We're not saying that, look, it's a open and shut case, like the science is supporting us. I think the science does support us. The scientific hard data does support us, but we're not these science absolutists, especially when we look at the level of bias that is involved in modern science and modern scientific studies, especially when you get into the realm of psychology and some of the,
End of debate.
not so hard sciences like psychology, sociology. So we don't want to give the impression that, oh, we're just going to live and die by what can be found in some published research paper somewhere. No, what I said in the debate, and I re-emphasized in our our debate review, and now I'm going to a third time emphasize it. So hopefully, you know, the Christians and others will understand now, third time's the charm, that science can be very biased. Science can actually, the entire institution of modern science is a liberal institution and is used by the liberal states, the global liberal hegemony, to support.
How can you even argue
values,
with this guy?
To support a liberal worldview and liberal norms. That is a fact, and I'll show you evidence of.
Okay, yeah,
Wow.
You're right. How can you even argue with it? This is them just coming up with an excuse. Anytime the science agrees with us, you see we're right. Anytime the science doesn't, well, that's just part of the conspiracy. We can just dismiss that because that's just being used. And by the way, they never give any evidence that there is this massive conspiracy to prevent Muslim men from marrying and abusing underage girls. They just say it is, and they try to cite circumstantial evidence like Haqiqatjou did in his debate over Andrew Tate with Destiny. It's just, this is nonsense. This is just a way for them to dismiss whatever they want.
It is so ridiculously absurd. I mean, how are you even supposed to get through this guy and his audience when he comes out here and basically says, hey, I'm going to argue for this position, and I'm going to present you a bunch of evidence, a bunch of proof, a bunch of scientific research, which clearly supports my point. And his audience will basically applaud him for every single evidence which he twists and presents. On the contrary, on the other hand, when you come and say, I counter your argument with these pieces of evidence, research papers that are like 50 times higher in number and in credibility, in peer reviews and all that, he will just say, well, I don't accept those because those clearly have a bias, therefore I win. And his audience actually stands by that and applauds him for that. So how in the world are you supposed to get through to this guy?
You can't, and you'll see why. He'll come back to this point at the end, which we'll cover, where he's going to shoot himself in the foot. He's basically, what he's saying here, he's setting himself up to debunk it all at the end. So let's keep going.
Of that in a second, but this should be obvious for a Christian. Look at what we pointed out, what I pointed out in the debate and in the debate review, is that look at the amount of science that supports children getting gender-affirming care, as they call it, such as surgeries, hormone therapy, etc. The science is almost unanimous that this is something that is good for children. Now, does a Christian accept that? Would a Muslim accept that? Would anyone really who knows children accept that? No, but that's what the science says. That's what the science says, and that those papers are being used constantly by the far left and progressives to say, look, our opposition, the Christians who oppose us, the conservatives that oppose us, they are anti-science. They don't understand science. This is something that a Christian cannot deny. And Mike Jones didn't deny it. He just tried to ignore this point. He tried to ignore it. And
no, I addressed this, Daniel. Okay. He's comparing apples to oranges, as I've pointed out before. Let's just pull up again. I'll pull up my Safari tab here.
He lied, by the way. It is not almost unanimous.
It isn't. And here's an article showing that there's a lot of professional disagreement. Yeah. Here's another article that shows there's a lot of professional disagreement. Here's a study that was published. I found this really easily, just trying to search on Google Scholar for gender transitioning and mental health. And what they say, if you look down here, overall, there was no significant effects on social transition or name change on mental health status. So how did this study get published? If it goes against the secular liberal agenda, they should only be publishing the studies that shows positive mental health from gender transitioning. So why are they allowing this study to get published this year? This was published like a month ago? Oh man, I mean, how did this one get through the evil liberal hegemony that rules the world?
They probably couldn't catch this. They didn't see this one. Yeah.
Oh, it was only open access. I mean, who was going to miss this one?
Oh boy.
Yeah, this is the kind of stuff we see from them. It's all a conspiracy. But what about the stuff that got through? Well, sometimes things get through. Guys, if you think this is all a conspiracy, then how was I able to do a 50-minute video on all the positive effects from Christian religiosity, because according to Daniel, that goes against the liberal secularist worldview that religion is beneficial in multiple ways. Yet I was able to do a 50-minute video called Is Christianity Harmful?, where I cite meta-analysis, systematic review, study after study showing positive benefits. Okay, those shouldn't exist if Daniel was right. But again, he just ignores data that goes against his narrative. Yeah. All right, let me put it back up here because we got more to go through here. I'm going to move ahead because he just sort of goes on a little bit. Just going to move ahead a couple seconds here. Because again, as I said, we're not going to address things they said over time. And I want to get to this paper he cites here because again, he's going to come back to this later on.
This is actually an example of him just on the spot making up something, and then even remind me if I'm incorrect, but he brought it up during the debate that this is. Did he bring this up during the debate? The whole gender affirming care. That this is also So he brought it up during the debate that this is also almost unanimous that it is good according to science, but you are not trusting the science in that regard, but you are trusting the science in other ways. Therefore, you are a hypocrite. And you actually responded to him on that during the debate, despite the fact that should be closed. He should probably, as an honest intellectual, he should go back and research this point, and then come to the very simple conclusion that he was actually wrong, that this is actually not almost unanimous. But then he completely ignores that, and he brings it up again as a counter, again as a major counter at the very beginning. This just shows the dishonesty here.
It shows he doesn't have any arguments left. And you'll see they're really running down. As I said, they can't address most of the points that I presented, and they're focusing just on the fact that girls don't die in childbirth, which again, I have a lot of data we're going to present here to combat that. But here, let's keep going.
Science must respect the dignity and rights of all humans. New ethics guidance addresses potential harms for human population groups who do not participate in research, but may be harmed by its publication. So what is this about? This caused a lot of controversy when it came out last year.
Okay, it caused controversy. Okay, so that right there shows this is just not a unanimous agreement among professionals. So way to go. Way to go.
Wow.
So what they say is people can be harmed indirectly by scientific research. For example, research may inadvertently stigmatize individuals or human groups. It may be discriminatory, racist, sexist, ableist, or homophobic. It may provide justification for undermining the human rights of specific groups simply because of their social characteristics. So their guidelines, their new ethical guidelines at Nature, and these are guidelines that will be adopted for all of research publication, is that if something can be used to justify, it's not even like the research itself is sexist or homophobic or transphobic, but it could be potentially used for that purpose, then we're not going to publish it. We're not going to publish it. It doesn't matter how scientifically sound it is. It doesn't matter how much empirical evidence supports it. We are not going to publish it. There is a fine line.
They're basically saying if any of the findings point out stuff that we do not like, we will not publish it. We will hide the study. And they are now. This used to be known. This used to be obvious to anyone who ever read journals. But in the current year, they are able to just come out and say it openly. So that's some progress actually in terms of their honesty. They are now publicly declaring their biases. So that's good.
Exactly.
Okay, guys, Nature's not the only journal out there. Like, even if you guys were right about this, I mean, this proves nothing. Everyone has bias. That doesn't mean we could just dismiss their findings. Let's just dismiss everything Muslim Skeptic ever publishes now because they're biased. Is that what they want to do? This is what we can just dismiss everything they're going to say because they clearly has Islamic bias. Anytime a Muslim publishes something, I'm just going to dismiss it because he's just trying to confirm his bias. Is that fair? Can we do that too?
You know what's funny? What I find very ironic, he recently went on a tangent to attack an Islamic school, which is, I think, the first Islamic school in America that is accredited, which is the Zaytuna College. And because they published a series of articles about different faiths, including Hindu beliefs and something like that. I'm not entirely sure about the details, but so they then objectively, without a bias, analyze those beliefs and those ideas and present them to their audience. And he became outraged about this because the university is engaging in something and objectively presenting ideas that Muslims should not be exposed to, despite
Yeah.
that being part of the program. And it's so funny that it is so ironic that he's now complaining about a specific journal not publishing.
It's this video right here where buy in, because he went after them a lot. Like, he did a whole video going after them. This one is your zakat funding the most un-Islamic graduate school.
Okay, yeah. That is funny, man.
So yeah, let's go back to the presentation here. I moved ahead a little bit because, again, they're just saying the same stuff, and we're just going to skip a little of the fluff out here.
We're going to get published, right? And it is actually quite a miracle that we can find data, as you've demonstrated in the previous live stream. You're going to demonstrate again in this live stream that there is data that if you read between the lines, you can see that it shows, okay, there's nothing inherently problematic about minor marriage. We will be able to see that, but the researchers can't come out explicitly and say that. They haven't been in the past, but now maybe they won't even be, even if they don't say anything positive in favor of minor marriage, even publishing the data itself won't be allowed, because that data can be used in a sexist way. It can be used in a way that violates UN human rights norms. So this is what we're dealing with. This is why we cannot have this kind of naive view of scientific research. Like, this is how liberal institutions operate. They just generate a lot of papers that cite each other, right? And this is what you showed, like when you were looking at that 5 times, like in childbirth, mothers under 18 have 5 times more death than over 18, right? Maybe
under 15, 19, something like that. We have the original study. We can look directly at that study. But yeah,
we'll look directly at that. But that claim, when you investigated it, you just had to go back through many papers to be able to find that data. Mike Jones wasn't even able to find it.
Yeah, he got lost.
Oh, the irony. No,
Wow.
I didn't, guys. You didn't read the papers I cited. You should have read the 1985 paper. I had a last little minute decision last stream where I was like, I'm just going to show them the papers and then see if they read them. And then after the stream, I was like, I should have just went into detail and showed them, because they may not even reply. But then they did. And in fact, they really doubled down and think that I didn't find the claim. But this only demonstrates they didn't read the papers I cited. And when we get to them, you're going to see, because I'll go right to the actual lines and show you where they say it.
So problem 1, he's completely relying on his anonymous fake doctor and what he said about the papers and his findings.
Let's just say, I don't want to say he's a fake doctor. He's just a faceless, nameless doctor. He's hiding something. And who knows? Like, he could be, but I mean, he's hiding. So we can't really just take his word.
I think given the evidence, it is I find it more likely that he's not a doctor, but fine. Okay, I agree with you. But problem number 2 is he either did not actually sit down and listen to your stream, or he did listen to it, but he's just ignoring the things that you said and wants to be dishonest.
Yeah, and again, they have not addressed, I'll keep bringing this up, most of the points. In the last stream, I addressed their main points. Their claim that puberty ends at 12 to 13, which we'll cover here again. Their claim on mortality rates. Their claim that child marriage isn't harmful. Their whole BS on attraction, where Daniel cites graphs he got from Reddit, which, by the way, he pretends doesn't exist in this stream. He just ignores that blunder he made. Yeah, so that's the kind of stuff we're dealing with here. But let's get back. I did jump a little bit ahead, but there's a line I want to make sure we don't miss.
Wait. He actually ignored that completely?
Oh, yeah. Oh, now you'll see. When we get to the whole attraction stuff, because we'll get there, he completely ignores the graphs, the blunders he made, and he just goes to research on hebephilia, which is, we'll point out, it's entirely irrelevant. Yeah, we know hebephiles exist. That doesn't show us that child marriage should be allowed.
This is just blatantly dishonest on his part. I mean, how can you not see this, man, people?
It's connection to liberal values, and its use as a justifier for liberal values. Like, this is an inherent epistemological bias that Mike Jones wants to deny, or he just doesn't even want to talk about it. But just for the benefit of our audience, we want to make sure to have that level of sophistication. Like when we're talking about science, we don't want to just present it in this kind of reductionist way that, oh, our whole case about minor marriage lives or dies on the basis of what the science says. Trust the science. No, that's not what we're saying at all. So
you heard it here, folks. When people say trust the science, that's not what they're saying. They don't want people to think that they're saying trust the science.
Why does Daniel then bring dubious papers or twisted citations whenever he wants to argue something? Why does he do that to begin with?
Exactly. It's only, the science is only useful when it's convenient for him.
Yeah.
But when it's not, they're just going to ignore it. And that's what they've been doing. They've been ignoring most of the stuff I brought.
That just doesn't
just
make
want
any
to
sense.
start
There is no
our-
justification
start-
to it. It shouldn't. That should not make any sense. He should not be able to do this. It is not consistent at all. There is no explanation to this.
They're just showing their bias. They don't all the psychiatric issues associated with child marriage. They're just going to ignore. But yeah, let's let them finish out. I'm going to go for I think a minute or and a half here.
our discussion on that point.
Yeah. So the basis of the scientific method is to not trust the science. And we at Muslim Skeptic, we are not science trusters. And at the same time, we are not science deniers either. There are sometimes, in some cases, it is a useful tool to evaluate the reality around us. Counting, quantifying, observing, those are valid tools. However, with the current peer-reviewed journal system, it has been demonstrated that this system is lacking in so many ways. And our religion is not based on following the science.
There's the $1 million line right there.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That's all we needed to hear.
I'm gonna let him finish it out here, and then we'll stop.
I believe the only religion in the world based on following the science and following the experts is modernism, liberalism, as a way of understanding the world. It is they who have to take all of their knowledge about the world from scientific papers, and they deny everything else, any other way of knowing things.
Right.
And but even in this limited paradigm, we will dive into this limited paradigm. We will dive into this rule set, and we will still be able to again show that we are correct. Even
okay. So you guys heard it there, folks, that their religion is not based on following the science. Wow. And I would point out Christianity is. Early church fathers taught there were two books, the book of scripture, the book of nature. We have to use nature to help us understand scripture and vice versa. So if you go back to the whole there's a lot of misinformation about the Galileo affair. Tim O'Neill on History for Atheists has debunked a lot of this, but their main concern is that Galileo was not conforming to what nature taught. And they even said in their letters after the trial, they said, if we're wrong, it just means we misunderstood scripture because nature helps us interpret scripture. So they're absolutely wrong on modern secularism being the only thing that has to follow the science. Christians have to follow the science as well. So let me just cut out a little of the fluff there. I got it. My next marker is 18:15. So I'll go here for about 2 minutes.
I think I need to clip this part.
Yes, you do. Yeah, yes, it does. That's why I wanted to make sure you saw it, because again, I want your reactions. But we're going to see they're going to start this is a good example of what I want to show you here of them being conspiracy theorists, making bad inferences from limited research and how bad they are at research, because they're going to start attacking me here, which is, let's let them play it out here for about 2.5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And I will be honest, it was very difficult to watch his response to our analysis, to our post-debate analysis. His response was so unhinged, so incompetent that I could not watch more than 2 minutes at a time. I just managed to finish it around 3 a.m. last night. It is so unhinged and incompetent that it is very difficult to watch. Every few minutes, I have to stop the stream and go like, so stupid. Why? How could you make such a stupid mistake? But he does, and he doesn't seem to notice.
Yeah, and, I had the same experience, like trying to get through it. What made it worse is that he has some kind of chirping in the background. It sounds like a smoke detector that needs a battery, and that's common. Like people who aren't very responsible in their personal life. They just
That's the main
allow a
argument.
smoke detector to continue to beep every 10 seconds. That's dangerous. Like, your smoke detector needs a battery. Like, you
Yes.
could die in a fire if you don't replace your batteries.
No,
So he
that
did
would
not.
be nice.
Yeah, so I tweeted that, like, why are you not changing your batteries? This is like a 2.5 hour stream, and every 10 seconds we have to hear a beep in the background. It's really annoying. And then he bizarrely saw my tweet and said that, oh, Daniel, is making fun of my voice. Daniel is insulting my voice. What? Like, his reading comprehension is so bad. I don't know how he is trying to cite scientific, like, these dense scientific papers. Like, he couldn't understand my simple tweet about a smoke detector. He thinks he took it as me insulting his voice. He tweeted like people in his replies were saying, I don't.
Okay. First of all, I corrected myself on that as a note. But Daniel, it was the fan behind me. But do you see the conspiracy theory level reasoning? I heard a beep. Therefore, it's his smoke detector. Therefore, he's irresponsible and he's bad at this. That's how he arrives at that conclusion from hearing
Therefore, I am
a
right.
squeaky fan in the back. Like,
He misunderstood
what
my
I mean.
tweet, therefore you cannot trust him, because how can he understand science papers? He had a chirping in the back, therefore we cannot take him serious as an authority on science. Isn't this guy supposed to be a graduate in philosophy from a prestigious university? I don't understand how he can make these logical connections and conclusions.
Well, I mean, what do you expect? I mean, Abdullah said he finished watching it around 3 a.m. the day before. So they didn't have a lot of time to prepare. He didn't spend a lot of time looking at the papers, and they're just ready to go in. Daniel last time, again, cited those ridiculous graphs on attraction, which he still hasn't backed up, and he didn't actually read the citation. We'll get to those at the end again, because I actually found the study after my last stream for his second graph, and we'll show that he didn't read that one either. But yeah, this is the type of conspiracy level reasoning we're getting from them. They find little things to make large inferences from. And you might think I'm poisoning the well here, but I'm showing you an example because you're going to see more of it later when they get to the actual data here. So now they're going to try to move on, and they're going to try to justify their arguments they were making last time about puberty ending 12 to 13. And I got the actual quote from the prior stream, so I'll read that out here, but let's let them hear some of this.
I just want to ask a brief question, Mike. Did they ever actually review or play your stream and respond to it, while reviewing it? They didn't.
No,
right?
I think they responded like 10 or 20 minutes. I think they played like maybe 10 or 20 minutes, if I'm being charitable. I don't even think it was that much, but I mean, like, to be fair, I'm fine with that. I mean, they missed a lot of claims I already addressed, and they're trying to not play the stuff where I pointed out a lot of their errors, like on that whole traction stuff, as well as the misunderstanding Noel Noir's paper. But you'll see, they're basically going to try to defend 4 claims here. Okay. This is the first one I have on the screen here. They're going to try to defend the idea that puberty wraps up or is mostly complete by around 12 or 13. They're going to try to debunk the claim that a girl under 15 is 5 times more likely to die in pregnancy. Then they're going to try to argue that a girl over 15 doesn't have any complications in pregnancy and just isn't going to die. And then they're going to go on to attraction. And that's the whole stream for the most part, other than a couple minor things here and there. So here's their first thing. I think I'm going to play this for about a minute, and then I'll stop it. And then I'm going to remind them of what they said the last stream and how this is not helping them.
That Mike Jones doesn't have a science education. Like, he doesn't have a formal scientific education, unlike me and unlike Dr. Abdullah. Now, Mike Jones in his stream was questioning whether you're actually a doctor. Like, unless
he seems to be questioning my credentials, which I mean, the most I can say without getting my hospital into trouble is I'm a doctor working in New York. That's the most I can say right now without getting my hospital into trouble because of. He
knows what he's saying.
Yeah,
is not good. And so, yeah, no wonder he wants to hide.
Yeah. Case closed.
That's not enough, man. You have to show us 2 forms of ID. You have to hold them up on the screen. You have to give us all that information. Otherwise, how can we believe you? It's not like you're speaking in an expert fashion on these scientific studies with clear advanced medical knowledge. Like, that's not enough. We have to actually see your driver's.
Okay.
Advanced medical knowledge.
Yeah. Let's remember what Abdullah said in the last stream. I got the quote here. So in their first stream at 35:40, Abdullah says, the puberty process takes a child to maturity, to adulthood. And in girls, it can be completed between 12 and 13 to sometimes 15 years of age. It differs, but in most cases, it is completed by 12 or 13. Daniel then asks, complete by 12 or 13? Abdullah says, complete by 12 or 13.
Wow.
And the paper they're citing, I'll put this on the screen here so you guys can see it here.
I heard that during your review of their stream, and I heard a lot of stupid stuff from these people, but when I heard that, I just completely, I couldn't believe it. I even called you, right?
Yeah.
Remember, I called you immediately as soon as I heard that. I was like, "What are these guys talking about? Is this serious?"
Yeah, well, this is the paper they're citing. It's trends in menarche and when girls reach the age of menarche. This is the graph they go to. None of this shows puberty is complete by 12 or 13. So that's why we were questioning your credentials, Abdullah. That's not what this shows. And again, it's not hard to find medical literature that actually shows this. So again, let me go back to
I mean,
one of the sources I
any
used last
woman,
time.
ask any woman about that, about what he says there.
Oh, exactly.
My
Like,
wife was next to me, and I was like, "Did you hear what he just said?" And I played it again to her, and she was like, "What? It doesn't make any sense."
Yeah. Middle adolescence. This is when you ages 15 to 17 is when you complete puberty. It's not that. So what on earth is he getting at? That was why we were questioning his credentials, because that's just blatantly wrong. And could easily find a few medical textbooks that show that. But let me bring up another paper that they actually apparently cited. So Daniel linked this one under his premiere, under his last stream. And so I read it because I read everything they cite. It's this one here, growth of the birth canal in adolescent girls. And they never actually put this on the screen, but this is about the growth of the birth canal. And as you can see, here's age of menarche in this graph, but there still is more development after that has to happen. Now, this will be relevant when we talk about problems for girls under 15 later. And as you can see, the birth canal is not fully grown. There's still more growing to happen. They're not completing puberty by when? 15 to 17, as the medical literature will say. But so I went through this and so let me just read from the ending here. Okay, so although it has been shown that infants of teenage mothers are significantly lower in birth weight, fetal head circumference is not less, despite smaller body size of the mother. So again, just because an infant has low birth weight doesn't make it better, because they still have the same circumference of the head to push through, and that can create problems for these poor girls that have not had their pelvic floor fully developed. The smaller pelvic capacity evident in the sample of adolescent girls indicates that immaturity of the pelvic basin may contribute significantly to higher incidences and other dystopic, I forget how to say that word, dystoxia. I forget how to say it, so I apologize, but I'll put it on the screen so everyone can see. During labor observed for girls below the age of 15. So yeah, there are problems for girls below the age of 15, as they're even saying. And I got this from apparently something they're using to show that girls are mostly complete, but still there are problems for girls under 15, despite what they're saying, according to this paper. And you can go through and see the results. You can see how they're showing these kinds of things. This one graph, of course, is pretty evident of this. You can see percentage of pelvic growth compared to stature, and you can see it's growing along with stature, but it's still not fully developed until you basically are at 15 to 17, as I stated in my opening statement in the debate. Yeah. All right. So,
But hey, he's a physician who works at some hospital or something, and therefore he's right.
No, you got me there. Yeah. Okay. So again, that's all I wanted to comment on that. Again, let's just move ahead to a little bit of the fluff here. Again, they're going to talk about this, but again, none of this confirms their main point. That paper they just cited, this one here. None of this confirms their main point that puberty, which Daniel said in the debate and Abdullah said in their last stream, that puberty is complete by 12 or 13. It just doesn't say that. So let me go ahead.
For those who don't see the weight of what is being said here, I personally do not believe that it is that it's possible or reasonable that any physician would actually say, "Oh yeah, girls complete puberty at age 12, 13." Yeah. I do not think it is possible. It is incredibly absurd. The average person who has heard about puberty, who has who knows somebody who experienced or who has experienced puberty, knows that this is completely false. A physician should not sit down and make such an absurd claim, which is basic knowledge that you cannot possibly get around. That he gets that wrong. It is it is absurd. It is
Yeah,
just
and
absurd.
that's why the whole questioning thing was happening here. So again, and then this paper doesn't show that. It just shows when menarche happens for girls, but that's not the end of puberty. That happens in what? Tanner stage 4, and then there's still more development in Tanner stage 5. So this is why puberty is complete in most girls 15 to 17. And I noted in my opening statement, puberty is a process. I said that multiple times to point out that you got to wait for this process to complete. You just can't assume, oh, they had their period, they're an adult now. That's ridiculous. So, all right, let's let them play here for, I believe, 1 or 2 to 3 minutes here, and then we'll stop.
Physiologically, biologically, and
this is a little too complex to go over in a 2-hour stream. I will try to, inshallah, make some dedicated videos about these, and maybe we can, take a comprehensive look. But
I can't wait to see those. That's what I wanted to play there. But yeah, apparently he's going to do some more videos. And again, we're still trying to figure out who this guy is. But I mean, the more he talks, he might just keep saying more racist things for all we know. Here's again, this is what I wanted to talk about here. So,
probability of first sexual intercourse among women by age at menarche in the United States. So, this chart on this side, you see the groups stratified by their age at first period. So they analyzed girls who started having their period at different ages. They stratified by the first menarche.
Right.
And on this side, the columns show you their claimed age at first sexual intercourse. So this is what the girls would admit to. So this is the data that shows when the girls started fornicating, basically. And this is collected by the CDC. Now, why did I say fornicating? Well, sex outside of marriage, I believe he admitted, is a sin, and he is against that too. If you go to some of the research done by American NGOs, they say the minor marriage rate in the United States is 0.6%. Out of every 1,000 minors under the age of 18, only 6 are married.
Good. Less is
in
better.
this age group, the marriage rate is 0.6%. However, the fornication rates are up to 71, 76% by the time they reach the age 18. And if you look at the earliest ages of sexual intercourse, you will notice that CDC started asking after the age 14. They didn't even ask, did you have sexual intercourse at age 10, 11, 12, 13? They started asking from age 14. And when asked, given these options, 20% of girls who had their periods early already had started fornicating at age 14. 20% of girls were already fornicating by age 14. In the average group, in the girls who had their periods at an average age, the fornication rates were 14% by age 14. And by the time they get to age 18, about 70% of them have committed fornication. Now, in the debate, you ask him, what is your solution to the fornication problem? Because girls at age 18 have a marriage rate of 0.6 and a fornication rate of 76%.
Right.
And
Okay.
his solution was to re-educate them, rehabilitate them. So from what I can understand, I think Mike Jones wanted to establish massive re-education camps, concentration camps all across the United States, and put 75% of all girls in these camps to be re-educated.
Rehabilitated, yeah.
To be rehabilitated. Maybe they will tie them down to chairs and read them Bible.
Is this a serious person? Like, yeah, I think that girls should be educated properly on sex and encouraged to wait to find someone special in marriage as a Christian. But that means I want to install communism and put them in re-education. Again, as I noted, conspiracy theorists, you take little bits of information and you make wild inferences that just don't come. And this, again, are these serious people here? Like,
how in the world do you come to that conclusion from what is being? I heard you in the debate. You said that they should be educated and they should be taught to abstain, right? To be celibacy should be taught. How does he get from that to as far as I understand, Mike Jones wants to establish concentration camps. And what?
Yeah, I mean, like, this is what we're working with, people. I mean, so let me go over some studies. Okay, as I pointed out in the debate, here is a study that Daniel has cited in the past. Okay, it shows that early marriage does not appear to explain the relationship of lower premarital sex in Islamic and Hindu societies. If you go down to the graph here, so model 2 is what calculated premarital sex to explain the relationship. And as you can see, it's non-significant here. The 3 check marks show that it's got a pretty low p-value. And for those who don't understand statistics, a low p-value is a good thing. If anything is a p-value higher than 0.05, so anything higher than this number here, 0.05, is not going to be significant. You can't say it's due to random chance or not. But this has a pretty good p-value. So they're saying that early marriage cannot explain lower premarital sex. You could have a traditional religious society without early marriage and still have lower rates of premarital sex. That's what they point out in this study. Also, as I pointed out before, child marriage is associated with more STDs, cervical cancer, depression, isolation, sexual violence, as I pointed out in this review of the literature here. So I cited this one in the debate. And so, no, child marriage does not reduce fornication. If STDs are actually increasing if you have more child marriage. This should not be complicated. So their solution to like higher rates of fornication is nonsense. There's no research that supports it. I mean, the actual research shows the opposite is happening here. So, wow. That's what we're dealing with. But yeah, I want to apparently throw people in concentration camps. Yeah.
I can't get over that.
This is why I wanted you here. I wanted your reactions to this because this is wild.
Oh man, what in the?
Yeah.
I can't believe this guy's serious, man. Wow, man.
So they harp on that point for a couple more minutes, and then Daniel again has a very selective memory, and I'm going to show you an example here. So I'll go to about 40-30.
They claim, like Mike Jones in the debate, he couldn't admit that, oh yeah, he has a big problem with fornication that's happening in his societies. But just imagine, like he said that, yeah, I can't say that fornication is worse morally or less worse morally than child marriage or minor.
Real quick, because he doesn't understand virtue ethics. In virtue ethics, we have to say circumstances are very vital. I don't know the people involved in these situations. Some of these are hard to rate. With comparing which is going to be more immoral, which is going to be more moral, because ethics is not math. This should be obvious. So when you're a virtue ethicist, you don't do these types of things necessarily. Sure, you could say rape is far more immoral than say like masturbation, but you can't, when things are close, you don't make these kind of comparisons. So it just shows you to understand where I'm coming from as a virtue ethicist, which, I'm not surprised.
Or minor marriage.
He said they are exactly equal.
They're exactly
never said that.
Wow.
Equal. Okay, well, if you have this kind of moral outrage about minor marriage that he expressed multiple times, like, oh, he's making it his crusade to fight minor marriage, and he's grandstanding in that way. Okay, well, where's your crusade against the fornication that's rampant in your societies? Like
75%.
Like this is, and it's not like some kind of arcane statistic. Like people look at anyone who has gone through high school in the West, anyone who has.
Yeah, go ahead.
They're getting something very, very simple, something very simple and very fundamental here wrong the entire time, which is you are out there passionately, as you admitted, fighting against child marriage because it is harmful to children, because it is a quest of protecting children from being harmed through child marriage, especially if we're talking about young children, especially young girls, as they want to advocate for, are married to older men who would do nothing but imprison and harm them. And they think, well, little kids engaging in sexual activities with each other is also bad and is also morally wrong. So why is he not going after that? They do not seem to understand, or they willfully refuse to understand that these two are not the same things at all. Mm-hmm. That's the underlying reason why one is wrong and the other is also wrong are not in any way close to each other, not similar to each other. You can say this is wrong, this is also wrong. This might be wrong for completely different reasons, while this one is wrong for harming little children that you want to protect. And that is the crux. That is the whole point of the discussion. Why would you then bring up, 14-year-olds engaging in fornication with each other?
Well said. But first, I want to remind people, Daniel, you challenged me to debate this topic. I didn't just start this for the fun of it. I started it because you challenged me on the topic. So, Daniel, before the debate, I challenged you to debate on child marriage. Daniel, after the debate, why are you picking on us? You should go after secular liberals and their fornication. Like, make up your mind, dude. Why did you challenge me if you want to encourage me to go more after secular liberal and fornication? And by the way, I did have a Twitter spat with Professor Dave Explains, and he ended up blocking me over this very issue where I was arguing there are studies that show people that wait to marriage have better marriages, better long-lasting marriages, and so that could be a positive in favor of waiting. But also this great super chat, thank you, Godless Granny, she's absolutely right. This has always been about girls, and we're going to get to this later. I have notes on this when they bring this up. They have no solution to boys because Daniel's a proponent of hypergamy, that girls always want to marry up. So like 13-year-old boys that always have more raging hormones than girls, they have to wait so they can eventually marry down according to Daniel's hypergamous status thing. Never once do they bring up the poor hormones of boys in these situations, or 13-year-old boys and girls just supposed to get married and start off with a career and living with, this doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So absolutely right on this one here. So let's see where we're at here. Okay. Yeah. So here's them once again having a selective memory.
During the whole debate, he did not bring up a single Christian argument against you. The closest he came was, he said, Paul said we must love each other, so we cannot have child marriage, he says.
Right.
So how are you using that to argue against this? Why are you not allowing a 12-year-old bride to love her 20-year-old husband?
See, Godless Granny, that was the perfect time for your comment, because again, this is what it's about. It's absolutely about just the girls. We need to really make sure these poor girls and their hormones are taken care of by older 20-year-old men or in their 30s. Why are they so obsessed with girls' hormones at young, underage teenagers? What is going on?
Because despite the fact that he did not argue from fertility during the debate, that is actually what he usually argues and what his main point is. He just wants to maximize fertility and wants to, take advantage of little girls as soon as possible in order to, create more offspring, in order to increase fertility and increase the number of the population as much as possible, because that is what he's so worried about.
Yeah, it's weird. That's obviously just doesn't work. So I'm not even sure why they would use that. So let's move ahead a little bit. I want to eventually get to that claim that girls more likely to die, 5 times more likely to die under 15, because that's where we're gonna have some fun there. But so here, let's move ahead to this section.
Proving this over and over and over. And so he actually skips through most of our important points. He calls them rants. Maybe because he cannot understand them. Maybe he just thinks we are being mean to him for no reason. We are not being mean to him. It's just that I think most of the points go over his head, and he thinks we are being unfair to him. We have been very charitable towards the studies that he cited, towards his understanding of the studies. But after this 3-hour video, it's hard to entertain any charitable readings, charitable views of his understanding of science.
And why not make it simple and just go through his entire stream? Gosh. Why not make it so simple and just sit down and go through the stream and demonstrate it to us that IP is actually really not understanding it and that you have a response to everything? Why not do that? Should be very, very simple.
Well, because they can't. They know there's so much data that I presented that they're just going to pretend they've addressed it all. And they haven't, as we pointed out. Let's finish this point.
Yeah, because he has been skipping most of our content, we will not be watching the whole thing. We will return the favor in kind.
And, we watched the whole thing. That's why we had the clips that we brought out, where he's clearly confused. But we'll just spare the audience. We're not just going to go minute by minute to dissect everything.
It is very painful.
Focus. Unlike him, we're going to focus on his strongest points. Okay, we're going to steelman his position
Daniel does not know how to steel man anything. Okay, so once again, let's remind them of the points, because again, I'm going to harp on this, considering they're claiming that they've addressed my strongest points. So why haven't they addressed all of this? Okay, why have they not addressed the reviews I've cited, like this one here? This is a pretty strong review that has adjusted rates in it. Here's another review of the literature. Here are multiple studies I've cited. I basically read all these and I picked like a couple at random to just sort of present at the beginning to just show the harmful effects of child marriage. Oh, and by the way, multiple studies have found the same thing. But again, these are the things they refuse to address. And I addressed their main points. They tried to argue puberty ends around 12 to 13. That's false. They argue there's no physical harm or death from child marriage. That is false. And that men are more attracted to 14-year-olds. Okay, that is false. I've showed that. So I addressed their main points and many, many more. So again, they're just not being charitable here, and yet they're claiming they're being charitable, which is really weird. But yeah. So let's see here. Okay, so I've got the next time marker I've got is 47:25. Go. This is a fun part. Abdullah starts to psychoanalyze me, and you know what instant karma is? You're about to see some of it.
Yeah.
Notice how distressed he looks. He seems to be in extreme distress, breaking voice, looks defeated overall. He avoids eye contact with the camera most of the time.
Notice at this point, Daniel's not avoiding eye contact with the camera. So apparently if you're avoiding eye contact with the camera, you're distressed and you're at a breaking point. So thanks, Abdullah, for pointing out how distressed and messed up Daniel is.
That is his as a physician. That is his observation of your voice breaking. It's because you're stressed out by what's happening.
My voice always breaks and cracks. But I would never want this guy to diagnose me with something. I go in and go, yeah, doctor, I have something in my stomach. Well, I was going to run some tests, but based on your facial expressions, I think you got cancer. I guess we should just start treatment. Like, what is this? Is this guy a real person?
Wow, man.
Oh, we can't hear it. You have to share the audio.
I'm not sharing.
Okay, hold on. Let me just back this up because again, he's claiming that I'm having issues, and then we're about to see instant karma here.
He avoids eye contact with the camera most of the time.
Oh, we can't hear it. You have to share the audio.
I'm not sharing the audio. Let me see.
No.
How would I share the audio?
StreamYard gives you an option when you share. Oh. I think Dr. Abdullah dropped himself from the.
Guys, Abdullah is so stressed out and like he's so nervous. He's at a breaking point. He can't figure out how StreamYard works. If he can psychoanalyze my facial expressions, we can psychoanalyze his actions. Look how nervous he is. He can't figure. And Daniel just has to sit there and smile because, oh man, this guy is so nervous and can't seem to deal with these arguments. So this is what he's resorting to.
nervous smiling on Daniel Haqiqatjou's part. The doctor kicks himself out. Wow, these people are clearly very, very stressed and desperate.
They're very stressed and desperate, obviously. Instant karma.
3, so he'll be back in a second.
All right.
We lost you there.
Yeah, misclick. All right, share tab audio.
Yeah, that's it.
Let me explain what's going on today. So, as you know, I had a debate with Dan.
Now, is this the face of a man who is happy and excited? You guys tell me.
Fantastic.
Wow. So apparently when you're talking about how harmful child marriage is, you're supposed to be happy and excited. Is that what Abdullah gets when he thinks about that? Like, wow, dude. Like, we're talking about children being harmed from greedy, lustful men that basically mentally and physically torture them. We have higher rates of intimate partner. And I'm supposed to be happy about talking about this, dude. You gotta, like, whoa. Like this is what he thinks should be the reaction to this kind of stuff. That's kind of scary.
I mean, which honest debater and which honest doctor actually approaches a discussion like this and says, "Oh, look at his facial expression. Look how he doesn't look at the stream. He looks at his screen instead of the camera. Therefore, there's something wrong. So we can't trust him." And is that supposed to be a joke there on the screen? Do you see that the search bar on YouTube that he put up there? It says,
oh yeah, we're gonna get to that. We're gonna show how bad they are at conspiracy theories thinking. Someone in their chat was named John Doe, apparently running wild, and so they assumed it was me.
Oh,
no, it obviously wasn't me.
Wow!
Like, wow, guys! Like, high level reasoning there. No, I was actually meeting with a financial planner that day because we got to start planning for retirement, and then we went out to lunch. I was not watching your stream live. But someone in the chat is angry. It must be IP. This is the type of reasoning that they do. They did these little bits, as I pointed out before in other examples, and now this, where they just assume, oh yeah, this must be him. Horrible levels of reasoning, but we'll get to that. It's going to be kind of funny. Again, they have technical issues. I don't really want to bore the audience with that, so let's just move ahead here a little bit. And then they're going to start trying to respond to stuff coming up here. They're going to take issue with the first 2 papers I cited, and then ignore the rest. They're going to cherry pick. But they're not. They're going to take the fact that I was making a cumulative case and ignore that I had much more robust studies beyond my initial assessment. But here, let's.
So he said some interesting things. He said he was making a cumulative case.
Yeah.
He says he had much more robust studies after these first 2 that we looked into.
Debunked.
Yeah, or debunked, if you will. So it seems like he's implicitly admitting that his first 2 studies were not robust. Is that a fair assessment? Does the audience agree with me?
Wow,
Yeah,
logic.
they're strengthened by independent research.
Yeah.
Logic, great logic.
Yeah, and no, again, the studies I cited were not incorrect. They did not debunk them. In fact, they conceded points from them in their first stream about issues of low birth weight with them. So they obviously didn't debunk them. They had to concede some of the points those studies made. So what the heck are they talking about here? They didn't debunk anything. And once again, there's nothing wrong with citing a study like those, as long as other research comes along and confounds it and basically finds the same result. And that's what I was pointing. Hey guys, here's one study in India. Look what it found. Oh, look, here's a study that was here's a paper that looked at research in Africa. Same thing. Here's a review that found the same stuff. Here's another review that kept finding the same thing over and over again. That's what I was pointing. You're building this cumulative case. You start with a small snowball and you roll it up and it keeps getting bigger and bigger. They don't seem to understand how that debate tactic works. And they just want to ignore most of the data I cited.
I just understand that correctly. So, but by his logic, if I argue for something and I say I have an example here, and I have an even better example here, then I'm basically saying that my first example wasn't good.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. So.
Wow. Okay.
Okay. So here we go. Let's play this out for about a minute here.
Much more robust studies. Well, he showed about 20 studies during the debate. He had the first pages of 20 different articles plastered on the screen. We do not have time to go through every low quality source you have, man. Mike, I'm sorry, that's not how it works. He says he was making a cumulative case. That's not how you make a case. You don't accumulate 20 low quality studies and then bring all of those unsupported, baseless claims together and make a strong claim based on those weak evidences. That's not how scientific method works.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's a bad one. So they just ad hoc dismiss all my studies as low quality. So let's just bring one of them up, the ones I cited. Maybe they can start addressing some of this. So this is looking at mental health consequences of child marriage. Depression was the most reported mental health disorder. Anxiety, phobias, psychiatric disorders, substance misuse, negative well-being, and antisocial personality disorder were reported less frequently, though. Okay, let's go past the introduction. Let's get down to results here. You can go through this yourself. This is a pretty good quality study here. Okay, so early marriage increased depression risk by 2.771 after, this is the adjusted rate. So you can see we already have an adjusted rate. The p-value is extremely low, which shows it was not due to random chance. Even after adjusting for substance abuse, unemployment, age, residence, other negative life effects. Those married early had higher rates of adjustment disorder. Okay, it was associated with loss of education, self-confidence, decision-making power, childhood freedom of mobility, and peer social networks. Okay, I'm not going to read everything here. I do want to look at where is the intimate partner violence issue, because that's another big, strong one in this one. Let me find that here.
Wait, so you don't want to read everything in the study, therefore you have just admitted that the study is not good.
Oh, yes, it's all part of my evil plan. Yeah. Yeah. You can see here, it was significantly associated with increased likelihood of physical violence and severe physical violence. Again, even after adjusting for confounding factors there. So all these are low quality studies. These are the things Abdullah has been citing. You have to have a study that has adjusted rates. You'd have to have confidence intervals that are these kinds of things. And he says this is a low quality study. It just shows you they've not read these ones. You can look at the graphs here in terms of numbers of intimate partner violence. This is just the beginning of it. They looked at stress, substance misuse, suicidality. The paper I cited in the debate on suicide among Ethiopian girls had a regression model in it. So they're just absolutely wrong. They're all low quality. They just don't want to talk about them because they realize they might have to concede some more points here.
Mhm.
But yeah, this is just nonsense they're trying to make here. Just dismiss everything with one fell swoop so they don't have to let their audience know what's really going on. So where are we at here in terms of time? 52-13. Next one I have is, okay, Abdullah's going to start saying things again.
It's interesting to see the contrast here, by the way, where he says we're not going to look through your low quality research where they just include low quality just to dismiss it, where you on the other hand go through everything that they have actually given you.
I go through everything. They don't, and you'll see that. We're about to get to that when they start talking about the 5 times issue. They're going to take a lot. They're going to take a lot of stuff on it, and I'll show you they've not actually gone through the papers I cited. So let's get to this point here, though.
On to Yogita and Dinesh. I'm guessing that's a female name. I don't actually know. So this
Expanded,
is
it's hard to read. Expanded.
Expand coming up. How about now?
Great.
This is the study that he liked and he picked out of here and plastered on the debate presentation. This is what he presented to 300,000 people during the debate. Most importantly, early marriage bereaves young girls of their childhood by overburdening them with domestic responsibility, motherhood, sexual relations, rather than allowing them to play with friends or go to school. Boo-hoo. And,
Boo-hoo. This guy's a doctor. Like,
wow,
what?
man.
Like,
Wow.
girls are basically being forced into these early marriages, and they're being deprived of education. They're being overburdened with domestic responsibility, sexual relations. And his response, as apparently a medical professional, is boo-hoo. I really hope this guy doesn't treat children, honestly. Wow.
Wow, man.
Yeah,
Everybody, did you just hear that? Everybody, his response to this, to children are getting in child marriage overburdened with domestic responsibility, motherhood, and so on, instead of playing with friends, going to school. His response to that was boo-hoo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is the guy we're dealing with here. And yeah, later on, he starts to talk about a Jewish last name, and Daniel's got to cut him off. We'll get to that later, though.
he doesn't actually say this part. He cuts it out. If you
And dream about a career, yeah. So this
he
is
actually doesn't say that because it doesn't.
Yeah, I cut that out in the debate because I knew Daniel would just dismiss it because he doesn't think girls should dream about a career, and I was just going to focus on the things that were more relevant to his arguments.
Doesn't sound good. When you pull up his slide from here. Right here. So on the second page of his presentation about the Gujarati study, low quality Gujarati study that we showed, he puts this on the screen and reads them like this was a. You can see it?
Sure, yeah.
So he reads this as it's a huge discovery made by this paper. And as you can see, he modified the quote to remove "have a dream about a career." I guess he didn't like the way it sounded.
Why? But yeah, maybe it was just too long to fit on the slide. Maybe
could be. But when you go back to the paper,
I'm surprised that Daniel is being kind of charitable here. Actually,
yeah, he actually is. And again, I cut that out because Daniel would just have dismissed that.
Yeah,
the whole dream about a career. He doesn't think women should. He would not look at that as something that is good. So I was focusing more on what Daniel's psychology or what his position was, and that was not relevant to Daniel's position. So I was willing to concede that for the sake of the debate.
Is this Daniel? Is this a finding of the study? Is there a number or reference next to it? Do you see anything?
Well, he never said that this proves his case. He never said that, Dr. Abdullah. Be fair. He never said that quote proves that child marriage is wrong, that minor marriage is wrong. He never said that. So don't you know anything about sociology, philosophy of science? Come on.
Yeah. So he accuses me of violating the philosophy of science or whatever. What he's doing is he saw a sentence that he liked in the introduction section, which is basically, if there's no number next to it, this is the opinion of the author. The authors decided to write this sentence.
Do they not understand what a valid inference is? Like they're not making this up. I mean, they're getting this because the girls they interviewed are being overburdened with sexual relations, motherhood. They're being deprived of school. This is not an opinion necessarily. This is a natural inference from the research they're presenting here. And I'll bring this up here. Because again, if you go back to, again, the results here was significantly associated with mother's age at birth, having delayed antenatal care, spontaneous abortion, preterm delivery. If they're focusing on raising children, yeah, they're going to be deprived of things like school. They're going to be overburdened with motherhood, even though they've not been educated properly or had enough time for their brains to develop to where
This
they
is
can.
so stupid, man. Has he ever read any research paper?
Like you can, like authors are allowed to make valid inferences like this kind of thing, but apparently they just want to say it's an opinion, and they're like, okay, guys, whatever. That's what the game you want to play here. So let's see here. What's my next time marker here? I really want to get to this 5 times thing. So we're going to get there in a moment, but let's get back to this. And then I think this is the last section I'm going to play on this.
Method. And... you're playing. We're not seeing your. We're not seeing anything play it. No, you have to share.
Share separately. Oh, we're still seeing this, huh?
Yeah, we're still seeing the Asianti paper.
They see his trust.
Apologies to the viewers. I am very new at this StreamYard stuff.
You're so nervous. We get it. You're so distressed about all this. You can't figure out the technical aspects. But, oh, I'm sorry, Abdullah. You can psychoanalyze my face all day, but I'm just going to, if you're going to play that game, I'm going to psychoanalyze all your actions. It's clearly you are so distressed by what's going on here. You can't figure technology out. So let's cut out the technical errors. Abdullah also has a problem with ads here, as you can see, but we're going to get to the, so I pointed out in the debate, the UN reports that a girl under 15 is 5 times more likely to die in childbirth than a woman in her 20s. And then in my stream, I cited papers to support that. They're going to respond. And in doing so, they're going to show they did really bad research initially, and they didn't even bother to read the papers I cited.
Come on.
I need ad block. Okay, I got to get that next.
That's the claim they're making. Let's pull through. So let's go to the 2007 report. Okay, here it is.
This is the famous...
We're on to page 4.
This is the famous deep dive that he did.
Yeah, well, let's not replay it because
5 times more likely to die during pregnancy and childbirth.
Yeah.
People can just watch the clip that we have. We uploaded it yesterday of him really embarrassing himself trying to find the source of his fight.
I mean, I was embarrassed for him watching this. But let me point out where to actually find that paper.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be good because we said we're going to show the source. We have to do the work for these Christian apologists. We have to actually go and find sources for their claims because they themselves are too incompetent to find them. Wow. So this is like Muslim service, basically. We're helping. We're like the research team for these Christian apologists. Like we have to do the difficult scientific.
We have to do the hard work. Well, this is the study that his citation goes back to. This is not a study. This is a report by the United Nations.
Yeah. Okay. So here's what happened. Abdullah said in the original stream that the claim that a girl under 15 is 5 times more likely to die in pregnancy or in childbirth than a woman in her 20s is a UN talking point. It goes back to some 1997 or 1998 UN report, and it's not been sourced. There's no study behind it. Ironically, he shows there actually is a study behind it in this from Bangladesh. So he shows that he didn't do very good initial research. However, they're going to claim that what I showed you does not actually back up the claim. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through and show you that, yes, it does. They're going to claim the studies I cited going back to the 1985 paper does not do it. So let's walk through this again. Now, again, as I said last time, I just sort of put them on the screen because I wanted to see if they'd actually read the papers. They didn't, though. Because, and again, after the stream, I was thinking, I should have just showed it because they're probably not even going to respond. But not only that, they really think that like I just messed up here. That's how bad this is. So let me share my screen here. I'm just going to go full screen because I got a lot to share here. So we're going to go through and I'm going to show you everything where this actually comes from. So let me start with the report. So sorry, you got to see that. I hate when that happens. So here's the report. Okay. Let's go down to the claim on page 4. Okay. Premature pregnancy and motherhood are inevitable consequences of child marriage. An estimated 14 million adolescent girls between 15 and 19 give birth each year. Girls under 15 are 5 times more likely to die during pregnancy and childbirth than a woman in her 20s. Okay. The source is on page 88. Okay. I did this last time and I'm just going to do it again and show you. So here it is. These are it's in, which one is it again? It's in this one here. So let me pull up that paper here. So again, here it is. You scroll down very early on, they mention, okay, early childbearing has been linked to higher rates of maternal and child mortality, truncated education opportunities, and lower future income. Okay, then it cites this one. Okay. So if you keep following them, so the 1998 one here, okay, 1998 one, here it is. This is the one I put on the screen last time. Okay, I was hoping they'd read it. They didn't, but here you see it. For example, in Nigeria, they found that maternal mortality rates among women younger than 16 to be nearly 16 times that of women aged 20 to 24. Similar findings are reported in Cameroon and Ethiopia. So they do have data to back that up. Now, as I said, I was requesting it through the university. Well, I got it. And you can, this is the, if you scroll down in this paper here, so this is the 1998 one. You'll see they give two sources. One is an American journal. One is in a British one. Okay, so I got, I believe, the American version. So here it is. Okay, you see similar numbers here, the same area, 22,774. Here's the graph here. Okay, maternal death rate per 1,000, parity in booking status. Okay, so under 15, 27. Okay, at 15, 31. Women in their 20s, 4 to 5. Everyone see that? Can you see that, AP?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, maternal mortality is highest in the very young and for older, highly pious women. Okay. This was now they might claim, well, this was in sub-Saharan Africa because they made that point last time. That's highly Christian. They say this was more commonly among the Islamic faith, 90%. High prevalence of anemia, eclampsia. In the surveyed population, there was 525 eclamptics, 1,650 women with disproportionate, and no other age group, parity group, was prevalence of disproportionate eclampsia as high as they were in the youngest teenagers. So again, you can see this all in this paper here. This is from 1985, which I said it was. They're claiming I didn't make this, that I messed this up. So what Daniel did is he made this video, me getting confused, tracking down this study, putting these literal studies on the screen in this video right here, this second one, me being confused. Apparently me getting the claim all wrong. And no, the data's in there. He should have just actually read them. This shows you they didn't actually sit down, read the papers I cited. They just didn't hear me say the exact words. Therefore, it must not be in there. I had suspicion they weren't actually reading a lot of the papers I cited. This really confirms it, because if they would have read it, they would have seen that. But they didn't read it. So.
This is just so bad faith through and through. I mean, the things that they do, where you go through the actual arguments and the studies and focus on them, and they keep doing these. Oh, look, he embarrassed himself. Look, he looks nervous. What is this, man?
Well, here's the one for Cameroon. Now, this is not as strong because it's basically the report of one doctor that was working in Cameroon. Again, higher STDs, you have higher death rates among the adolescent girls he was working with. Same. Now, let me go back to this one here, because this 1985 one, they might say this is a very low sample size. The total maternal deaths, 174. Booked and unbooked, these were ones that were at booked hospitals. Unbooked ones were being unbooked emergency admissions. So they might say, well, it's a low sample size. So I'm actually working with an actual obstetrician who sent me something to use to say, no, the UN is actually quite accurate here. Here it is right here, ladies and gentlemen. This study here that was a cross-sectional study on Latin America. They looked at girls under 15 in mortality rates, okay? They cited this meta-analysis early on, which is also pretty interesting as well. I'm not going to have time to get into that. After adjustments, so they did adjustments of confounding factors, 16 major confounding factors. Adolescents age 15 or younger had higher risk of maternal death, early neonatal death, and anemia compared with women aged 20 to 24. Since Abdullah is obsessed with graphs, let's just go down here. Here are the adjusted rates. Maternal death, 4.09 compared to girls that are 16, 18, 19, and 20. They note adolescent mothers under 16 years were 4 times more likely to die than mothers aged 20 to 24. So maybe we could just say, maybe it's not 5 times, maybe more up-to-date numbers say it's only 4 times more likely to die. Can we compromise on that, guys? You guys going to finally admit that girls under 15 should not get pregnant because they have a higher rate of death and all sorts of other issues they have to deal with, like having to be cut in the pregnancy to allow for the baby to come through. I mean, like, are we? Can we work? Can you guys concede that point? I'll just say 4 times more likely from now on.
No, it's because the studies are biased and Islam doesn't follow science. So
Yeah, the UN is not making this stuff up, guys. There was a lot of research to back this up. This study is from done in 2004 or 5, I believe. What else did I want to say from this study? There's a lot of good stuff in here. Again, they adjusted rates, looked at confounding factors, compared with infant of mothers aged 20-24, those born to mothers aged 15 or younger faced a 50% increase in risk of early neonatal death. They also cite other research. So they know a nested control study from Bangladesh evaluated risk factors for 390 maternal deaths and found that compared with women aged 20-29, mothers aged 15-19 had a 65% increased risk of death. They noted a study from Ethiopia didn't really find anything, but a report evaluating maternal deaths in the United Kingdom showed that adolescent girls under 18 had an increased risk of maternal death as well. Now, this stuff will be relevant when we come back to the Washington State study they're going to cover. I may bring this one up again. But yeah, girls under 15 have a higher rate of death. The UN is not making this stuff up. You can go back to the 1985 study that I was citing and the 1998 report. And if you go to the 1998 report, let me pull that one up. So I don't have this one ready. Oh, that's the old one I have. Got a lot of tabs open here. Bear with me for a second. Here it is.
just shows that you're stressed and
Oh man, I was so stressed, dude. But yeah, again, found maternal mortality rates among women younger than 16 to be nearly six times that. Nearly 6 times. So if you're going to make a conservative point, you could just say 5 times. So no, there was research in the report. They just didn't bother to stop and actually read these. And yet they claim this is one of my big blunders. Well, you guys should have read the report. It might have saved you a lot of time.
wild.
Yeah. So this is why during their stream, I actually got to watch it live this time. And I tweeted out, I'm going to go live Monday, guys, because I knew I was going to be able to easily show this. But wow. Yeah. I love this one comment here. Must be a conspiracy.
Everything is.
It's all part of their evil plan, guys. Okay, so let's move ahead now because they're just going to talk about how the data's not in the report, even though they just would have, like, here, this is them going through this, finding this stuff. If they just would have taken a second and read what I put on the screen, they would have just saved themselves a lot of embarrassment. But what Abdullah is going to do is continue to. Okay, let me just let them play it. So let me tell you what they're doing.
Many thanks to him. This claim goes back to the early 90s. This claim.
Oh wait, let me go back a little bit here. This is where they didn't. I want you to hear where they got this information from.
That he's looking for. When you go to this one, like I said, it's a 2001 source. It points to a 2000 paper and a 1997 paper. When you go to those, they don't have sources. The 2000 paper is not even available online. The UN has not put it online. It's not reachable. But as one of our commenters has kindly pointed out, Ron Sertu, as Mr. Sertu has correctly pointed out, many thanks to him, this claim goes back to the early 90s. This claim goes back to the early 90s. This is
So remember the title of the video at the bottom: Muslim gives Christian free science lesson, or education. So what I've learned so far is to not actually read the papers that are cited. Instead, what you have to do is wait for a commenter to help you find the actual source of the claim, and then go with that. So that's apparently the science education I'm getting here. Don't actually read the papers, guys. You're supposed to just wait for a commenter to help you.
Cited sources, commenter, something, whatever his name is.
Yeah. Now, ironically, remember, Abdullah said in the first stream that this claim that a girl is 5 times more likely to die under 15 in childbirth is just a UN talking point. There's no data back it. Here, apparently, this commenter shows that it actually does go back to some study from Bangladesh. So Abdullah was wrong. They actually do. There was data behind it. And so they're actually going to provide more data to show that, yes, girls under 15 are at a much higher risk of death.
UN.
Another UN paper.
Another UN paper. And you go to this one. You will see this is one of the earliest one of the first times that they cite this. Twice as likely, 5 times as likely.
Can you make it bigger so we can see it? Let's actually read it. So in developed and developing countries, alike mothers aged 15 to 19 are twice as likely to die in childbirth as mothers in their early 20s, and those under 15 are 5 times as likely. So there's a citation there, or there's
allegedly. Let's
go to that.
See what it says. It points to Nafis Sadiq investing in women. points to Nafis Sadiq investing in women, focus of the 90s.
Nafis Sadiq investing in women, the focus of the 90s.
This
United
is,
Nations Population Fund. Okay, that's the source.
Yeah, so she is the head of the United Nations Population Fund, which is an organization dedicated to reducing population growth. just putting it out there.
Yeah. So
anyway, yeah.
I was shocked. When you pointed this out. So Nafis Sadiq, she's Pakistani, I guess, and another Desi auntie, and clearly there's no ideological motivation there. Like there's no. So she's not a scientist, right?
She's an OBGYN. She's an OBGYN, like trained at Hopkins.
God.
I think she might even have a public health degree, but again, she's receiving a massive salary to run this program.
It's all part of the conspiracy, ladies and gentlemen. That's what we're dealing with here.
So, first, the conspiracy theory is that the population fund is dedicated to reducing population growth. Is obviously not what the population fund is dedicated to. That's just what they twist it into. It is about healthy,
healthy populations.
Yeah, healthy population growth, and then the whole thing off the beginning, Daniel Haqiqatjou saying, "Oh, she's not a scientist," which the doctor then corrects, and then you see his facial expression. If you want to focus on facial expressions, just look at Daniel Haqiqatjou and how he reacts to being corrected, and then you can see.
Oh yeah, why doesn't Abdullah do that if he's such this unbiased doctor just trying to help us see the data? But remember what Abdullah said in 59:46 of their last stream. This whole 5 times claim. He said it's a quote from a 2001 UN paper, and not even a paper report. It's a report from 2007, which reports in quotes from a 2001 report. When you go to that one, it goes back to a 1997 report. And when you go to that one, there's no source. It's basically it's just a UN slogan. That's what he says. Here, he's showing he was wrong in that last stream. It actually does go back to research, and he's going through all of these sources to show you that. So he's just not only did they demonstrate that they did not have the time or the ability to just read the papers I cite, it would have saved them a lot of time. But now they're demonstrating that actually, no, it's not a UN talking point. There is data behind it, and they're going through all of this to show that because a commenter alerted them to it.
It's very hard to say I was wrong. It's very, very hard.
Yeah, I know. Oh boy.
This claim, the same claim, is repeated in many other papers, including this World Health Organization paper from 91. It says, a study in Matlab, Bangladesh showed that girls aged 10 to 14 years had a maternal mortality rate 5 times that of women aged 20 to 24 years. And for 15 to 19 years, the rate was still twice that of the 20 to 24-year-olds. And then...
so what's the citation there? The same?
Citation? No, the citation actually goes back to a proper study this time.
So it does go back to a study. It's not just not a UN talking point.
For once, they actually cited a proper paper. Let's see where it is.
Expanded. We can't read.
Then what is the point?
Let me find it first.
Well, the study is low quality. I'll give them that. But again, there was other research, as I pointed out, the Nigerian one, the Latin American one. So
right here.
Maternal mortality in rural Bangladesh. Studies in family.
Et al. A paper published in 1974. Rural Bangladesh.
All right, I'm going to move ahead just a minute because they just have some technical issues getting this up. And I just want to spare the audience. So let's just get to what they actually say in this.
2 villages in a small town called Matlab Thana. This was back.
By the way, this is the 1997 for Bangladesh report where they're claiming now this study does make the point that a girl under 15 is 5 times more likely to die during pregnancy, but it's got a low sample size. It's just a survey data. It's not based on hospital admissions, I believe. But again, the Nigeria one was based on hospital admissions. The Latin America one was much, much more robust. This just, once again, this would just be another supporting factor that a girl under 15 is at a much higher risk than a girl over 15.
Was back in 1967 to 1968. 132 villages, population of 116,000. And they did a follow-up to this first study. The second study that's contained in the same paper. The second study was 231,000 people in 233 villages between 68 and 1970. And here they describe the study area. Let's see if there's anything significant about this. Matlab Thana, the government rural health center in Matlab Thana, has 1 part-time physician and 1 to 2 midwives for about 300,000 people.
Right.
Do you see the issue here? But let's keep going.
But it says the health center also probably does not have a significant impact on maternal deaths. How could that be? Like,
because they have so little staff, they probably have zero effect on these 1 or 2 midwives. How are they going to reach every single one of these 300,000 people for their childbirths or prenatal care?
Since the staff is limited, I was reading it the opposite way.
You're muted.
Thank you. Yeah. Daniel claimed I got poor reading comprehension skills, but here he is making an elementary mistake. So, it's one thing. It's like if one of his opponents misreads something, it's a whole big issue. But if he does it, it's not a big issue. It's like a double standard.
They're trying to say, even though there is one health center there, not even a proper hospital, probably just some room with basic medical equipment in the middle of the town, they're arguing that this is practically zero doctors, zero healthcare. Essentially, right here it says, essentially all the deliveries are conducted at home with assistance of relatives or occasionally untrained village midwives. Little, if any, of the population has access to modern prenatal delivery or postpartum health services.
Right.
So this is 1960s in a small, like a rural part of Bangladesh. This is after 250 years of British exploitation. And this is right after the British have left. And now, mind you, Bangladesh has been one of the wealthiest regions in the world in most of history until after the British exploitation. Now they have picked back up, alhamdulillah. Now they are actually they have better income than some of the countries around them.
Right.
But this was a period of just complete poverty and just crushing poverty, no infrastructure, nothing to help these ladies. They were basically all delivering at home. Now, notice that the United Nations has taken this study and generalized it to the entire world and kept bringing up that same slogan since 1989 until 2010 and maybe even
who knows how, Allahu Alam, how many studies just refer to that stat like five times. They just spam it. Like, spam it in all these studies, and then look how much work we have to do to find the original source. And it's so outrageous. Like, it's so outrageous that they're taking this as like this is inherent to having children or childbirth under 15. Like, this is just the medical science is concluded. Like, this is how they're presenting it. And it's just some random village that has one doctor for 300,000 people.
One part-time doctor.
One part-time doctor. He's not even full-time.
Okay, so a lot to say here. Once again, this is not the only study the UN used, as I've just demonstrated. And I can provide that recent 2004 cross-sectional study as well to show this. So there's that. But they're claiming it all goes back to this one, which again shows that their original point that it was a UN talking point is not accurate. It actually does go back to some study in Bangladesh. And again, there's poor healthcare here. But again, what they still find in this little paper is that there was more death in the girls that were under 15 than girls over 20 with the same status of healthcare. So that still is evidence that girls under 15 are more likely to die. We just need more studies to show it. Lo and behold, I presented them. So, and again, they were in the UN reports. They claim they spent all this time looking for this report here. If they just would have read what I cited, they would have found it. They would have found other data to support this, but they didn't want to do that. What are you going to do? I mean, like, all right.
You could go into one of the historical things that he just mentioned about Bangladesh being one of the wealthiest places in the world before British exploitation, and probably contest that it was exploited by British colonialism, but it wasn't one of the wealthiest places in the world or anything. So,
I don't know if that's accurate or not. I mean, like, it is what it is. But here they're going to. Again, let's get back to the conspiracy here. Okay, they're going to get started a conspiracy here.
Over 100 years at that point.
Yeah, and during his stream, when I bring up that point, when I say United Nations had a stated goal of ending minor marriage since 1948, when I said that, it's right here in this Nawal Noor paper. Since 1948, the United Nations and other international agencies have attempted to stop child marriage. When I say this, he says, well, yeah, because it's evil, because it leads to harm, guys. So what study has shown the harm in 1948? He never clarifies that. So his argument is basically, yeah, we are trying to stop it because it causes harm, and it causes harm because these studies that we funded to show that it causes harm say it causes harm. It's like a circular argument that he keeps.
What?
Oh boy, the straw manning. It's just. Did you not present texts from pre-modern times?
Well, I can right now.
Yeah.
So here's one. This was, I believe, in 1938, originally. 1939. So first published. This is someone who was doing some work in India, and he talks about the harm of child marriage. So let's just go. Let me find where that quote is here. 1 second. I'll just search for it.
Oh, you even presented much older writings, right?
No, I don't think I did, but perhaps the most obnoxious feature of marriage code is child marriage. In communities practicing this form of sadism, the newlywed girl is always a child, while the husband often happens to be a sturdy man already married more than once. And the results of such unions are a reverse of the happy. Although consummation does not generally take place till the girl shows signs of maturity, there are cases wherein this does happen before puberty, with what results can be better imagined and explained. In any case, the experience of what they call the first night is a revelation to the girl, and after the horrors of the night, she can look upon her husband only as a heartless villain. It is not seldom that after this experience, the girl runs to the home of their parents and refuses to return to their husbands. But according to the code, they have to be brought back and handed over once more. So no, I don't think there was multiple studies done before 1948, but there were multiple reports coming out of people from places like India, Sub-Saharan Africa. Hey, there's this harmful thing going on called child marriage. Maybe we should start to study this more to see what's going on. You can find reports like this. So for them to say that this is just the UN got together in 1948 and goes, you know what? We want to stop Muslim men and Hindu men from abusing children. Let's make up some studies. Let's fund some studies to give us some bogus data to show that it's harmful. That's what they're trying to say here, which is utter nonsense. That's just not what's going on here.
But correct me if I'm wrong. So they just attempted to reduce your whole argument in the debate to just this, that you claim that that there is a body of scientific research which shows that it is harmful, therefore it should be banned, and so on. But that wasn't your only point. You did present also, I don't know, from sources from 2,000 years ago of how people already had observations and views of the harms of child marriage, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, Cyrannus of Ephesus was talking about how girls that are too young, they're not fully developed and they can have problems in childbirth. Albertus Magnus, Giles of Rome, was saying that girls should wait until they're 18 to have children. And they even conceded those points in the last live stream. Did they just forget that? So there's that issue. And yeah, if you read Kim Phillips' book, Medieval Maiden, she points there was this progression, this move to wait for girls to mature properly. So like one of the kings of Aragorn said that, when he married off his daughter, he said you can't consummate the marriage with the girl until she is 18. I believe it was like 18 and a half even. So this is just, so if you read her book, she goes through these examples. They were constantly arguing in Europe. The girls, they need to wait till they mature more. So this is just wrong that this was just all came out in 1948. No, there was lots of reports and lots of people saying we should wait till girls wait a little bit longer. Yeah.
Deceased after the fact. And then, so this is the first investigation. They have to go around asking the second
This is the Bangladesh paper again from 1974, just so people are aware.
Investigation. They analyzed birth and death reports and also childbirth reports, including some reported fetal deaths. They said a death occurring within 90 days of a birth event was classified as maternity-related, regardless of the stated cause of death. So it is a very, in modern day, you probably could not publish this in the current day. They would object that it is too imprecise. In addition, maternal mortality was assumed if the report stated that the woman was pregnant at the time of death.
Okay, so I want to just point here. This is the paper they're using. And again, the UN had other data to support this. Now, again, I do agree with Abdullah here. I don't think this would be the strongest paper to use. But again, it's not what I was using. Again, I've now provided even more data to support the claim. So and this is the funny, they spend a lot of time talking about this one 1978 paper. Think of the time they would have saved that they just would have taken 10 to 15 minutes and read the papers I cited. But they didn't even do that. But they spent a lot of time just going through this, pointing out a lot of this has to do with parity, which, again, fine. It's not the main paper that I was using. And if they would have just responded to the papers in my last stream, it would have saved them a lot of time. So I'm not going to just let them just go through this whole thing for like another 20 minutes. It's irrelevant to the point because it's not what I was citing. Let's just move on ahead. You want to add there, Ridvan?
No.
Yeah. All right. Let's jump ahead here because I want to talk about some of the other issues here, and they're going to get to. I'm going to cite something else here in a minute. So they're going to show us where they got this 1974 paper from. The commenter alerted them, and I think they got it through this author here.
What happened to this paper? The United Nations took this paper, and the UN Population Fund blasted this, saying teenagers are 5 times more likely to die in childbirth, based on this one small paper from a very poor area. This is a letter to the editor written by Anne Blank, and here she explains the adventure, the story of this Bangladesh paper. She says, during our analysis, we sought to uncover the source of the oft-cited so-called fact that the risk of maternal mortality of women aged 15 to 19 years is twice that of women aged 20 to 24 years, and that the risk for those younger than 15 is 5 times higher. We identified dozens of instances over the past 25 years in which these figures were cited, often without any reference, as we saw. And so this author is writing a letter to the Lancet, one of the the highest. This is the highest impact factor, one of the most respected journals worldwide. I think the first medical journal. This is a recent letter to the editor, 2014, where she describes how the UN came up with this fact and kept propagating this fact with no citation or reference, basically. And the author says this was repeated over the past 25 years, often without any reference. And she says, although we cannot be sure, the original source seems to be a study done in the late 1960s in rural Bangladesh.
Now, notice what Blanc says. They cannot be sure, but they think it goes back to this 1974 paper. Well, but again, as we just showed, there's more data that they did use, like the Nigerian paper, the one in Cameroon, as well as Ethiopia. Again, they note in the 1998 report, the data on Cameroon and Ethiopia is a little lower. It's not exactly the same, but you can still see where they're getting these numbers from. It's not just this Bangladesh report. And at least the author here they're citing is more honest than them and saying that we can't be sure, but it might be this, but it's not necessarily.
This is already a complete refutation of their claim in the first stream. So it is just completely dishonest on their part to not acknowledge that they've made a huge mistake, and then to explain.
Yeah, they should say, "Oops, we were wrong. It's not a UN talking point. There actually was a study behind it," but they're not even doing that. They're just, So again, it's kind of funny because they're doing this whole thing to try to prove that I'm a bad researcher. But again, it just shows they didn't read the studies I cited, and it shows that they just didn't do good initial research for their first stream.
Based on surveillance data collected in Matlab Tana, and showed that the maternal mortality rate for mothers aged 15 to 19 years was 7.4 out of 1,000 live births, whereas for 22 to 24 it was 3.8. For mothers younger than 15 years, the rate was 17.7. These ratios were subsequently cited in a 1989 World Health Organization volume and then repeated many times in journal articles, reports, policy documents without reference to the original data. So again, the United Nations and one of its subdivisions, the World Health Organization, found this one line from a study and they pulled it and they blasted it everywhere.
Okay, Ken, not true, no matter how many times they say it. Now, also, I want to point out that Blanc in this paper is focusing more on the 15 to 19 group. That's what she's taking more of an issue with. Let me pull that up here. So do you want to address that, AP, for a second? Because we talked about this before. We talked.
Yeah. So Free Speech said, AP, this guy sounds like that Muslim Ehtisham Ghulam who debated Sam Shamoon. So you also said that this could be the case. And
well, here's what happened. So let's compare their research skills to ours. They claimed some guy in their comment section, John Doe, was me from a few comments. Someone after the stream came to me and said, I thought I found out who Dr. Abdullah is. I think it's this guy here. And I listened to the clips of them side by side, and I said, well, they sound similar, but let me get some other opinions. And I asked you, I asked David Wood. You both said it's not. It's not him. And I said, okay, well, let's move on. No, notice the difference here. They find like little comments in their live chat. It's obviously Mike Jones. We get a voice analysis and we go, well, I don't think I'm sure. Let's just wait to see if we get more evidence. Do you see the comparison with how?
Yeah,
they do
and we have
research
good
versus
reason
we?
to actually believe that it was this guy. And it would be very convenient for us
It would
to
be, yeah.
to claim it, to come to the conclusion that it was that guy. To be honest, I don't think that it's him,
No.
because I listened to the guy. I feel like I think their tone and voice is slightly different. If you are not familiar with people from such a culture and such a background, you might consider their voices more, the same or similar to each other. I think I've heard more people who sound like those two guys, and I think they have different accents and choice of words. I don't think that they're the same person.
Yeah, and so we didn't jump on that. We said we need more data to see this if these are actually the same people, and there's a lot of reasons not to. So that's how you actually do research. You don't just see some guy in your live chat commenting and assume it's your opponent. Like, so anyway, this is what they're citing from this letter to the editor. They brought up in their stream here. They're focusing mostly on the 15 to 19 group. This twice is that of women aged 2024. And then they mentioned a younger 15 one is like another issue. And then they're got the site. Blanc actually did a paper on the 15 to 19 group, which we'll get to. But again, she didn't really focus on the under 15 claim. She's focusing more in the study there even about the site from 2014 on the group, the 15 to 19 group. So she doesn't even really focus too much on the under 15 group. And I just wanted to make sure people were aware of that. Is there other Muslim apologists supporting child marriage? Well, yeah, there's plenty, and there's plenty that don't. I mean, it just depends. I can't think of any off the top of my head.
I mean, there are a lot of people who are active on social media, on Twitter and all that, who do agree with child marriage. There are a lot of people around the world who do agree with child marriage. A lot of people who support Daniel Haqiqatjou is in his endeavor for child marriage. And also the lack of Muslim responses from people who do work with Daniel Haqiqatjou, the lack of people who say, no, we don't agree with this, speaks volumes.
I would like to see more. I mean, there is that one smaller channel, Muslima Explains, who's been calling out Daniel recently. And God bless her for her work. I mean, like, I would love to see more Muslims standing against child marriage for sure.
But that's the thing, especially women, right? I mean, we have seen women. I've seen her too, and other women who came out in response to Daniel Haqiqatjou's debate for child marriage, and who said this is disgusting. This doesn't represent us. What in the world is going on? We shouldn't be doing this. Especially women are disgusted by this. And they are coming out speaking against it, and that is good to see. And I hope that we can see more of that.
Yeah. All right. Let's get back to playing here. I don't want to spend too much time on super chats. So this is the Blanc study they're going to cite. The same author that was just reading on that letter to the editor. This is a study she did on maternal age in 38 different countries. But again, she only focuses on the 15 to 19 group.
2013.
What's her conclusion?
So let's get through this one a little faster. It says basically a J-shaped curve was observed in all the studies and all the results. A J-shaped curve with markedly higher risk after the age 30 is evident in all groups. We find that the excess risk among adolescents is of a much lower magnitude than is generally assumed. They are referring to the 5 times figure.
Right.
To the 2 times figure. Now, here they say, contrary to expectations.
Expand.
No. All right, so they did this study in the age group 15 to 19 because that's where most data is available. Not the under 15 age group. Contrary to expectations, the age curve only shows a modest excess risk at age 15 to 19 compared to age 20 to 24. The risk for women age 15 to 19 is approximately 28% higher than women age 20 to 24. So what does this 28%?
So before they get to that, I want to point something out here, guys. Okay, they focus the rest for the next hour and 15 minutes. They're going to focus not on girls under 15, but girls 15 to 19. AP, do you see an issue with that? Aren't at least 40% of their sample size legal adults? You have 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds.
Yeah.
Like this is why I said in the last stream, citing studies on 15 to 19-year-olds is dishonest and it's evil because it doesn't justify marrying and abusing children 15 and younger. Because you're citing a group that's already muddying the water, that include legal adults. And as we already pointed out, most of the girls in this group have completed puberty, because we noted girls complete puberty 15 to 17. So we should expect less problems in childbirth.
Yeah.
We should expect that because their pelvic floors are fully developed. They're not like under 15 where a lot of the problems actually are. And again, none of this covers the mental health issues I cited. Even if a girl that's 16 or 17 is perfectly fine to bear children physically, that doesn't mean she's mentally ready for that. We still see horrible correlations with their stress, depression, mental health, psychiatric issues, but they ignore all of that in the stream. They just focus on maternal mortality rates. Again, they're basically saying, guys, what's so bad about child marriage? It's not like they're going to die. It's like that's their whole argument at this point.
And you already strictly referenced the whole uselessness and the dishonesty and going to that data and then arguing from there. And it looks like they're not even addressing this. They're just moving with it once again and just using the same ideas, the same dishonesty, and the same lack of utility in their research again to make the same point.
Yeah, and again, the 15 to 19 group does not tell us about child marriage. The study I cited in Latin America separates 15 to 16 and 17, 18 and 19. You can see the differences in the groups there. This one is just lumping them all together. It's not that valuable in terms of understanding the effects of child marriage. Because again, you're including legal adults and you're looking at a group that has mostly completed puberty. This is why I said this is irrelevant in my last stream. And it doesn't really address the whole issue of child marriage, let alone the mental health issues.
Percent show, because there are certain liberal Christians, when they hear, oh, it says higher, 28% higher, I gotcha. There are certain viewers who will pounce on that. Here it is. Here's the aforementioned data visualized. Maternal mortality ratios. So because they had 38 countries, they did not just lump them all together. They separated them into high mortality and low mortality groups. As you can see, this is the ratios of maternal mortality death, unadjusted, I should add. This is not controlled for any of the confounders, including first time giving birth, primiparity or nulliparity, according to some other terminology. This is not adjusted, but as you can see, it is roughly equal to the 25 to 29 age group, and absolutely better than anything over the age 30. As you can see.
And very clearly, what in the world does this have to do with what we are actually talking about?
It doesn't. I mean, again, they're going to harp on this a lot. They're going to say older women are at a higher risk than like girls that are 15 to 19. Because now at this point in the stream, they're not even going to talk about 15 and younger anymore. They're done with that. They are just done on all that data. They don't even want to talk about it. But they're going to try to use this to justify all of child marriage. But
this just demonstrates one thing. They have no point, no argument, no good argument at all, no evidence at all to argue their actual point, the point of the actual debate. So they move on to this to this point here, to this red herring, and instead go with this and just want to put this in everyone's face. But it has nothing to do with the actual argument. But they want to connect it and include it in such a way to make it look like this actually supports the point of the debate, their point in the debate. It doesn't.
Yeah, and we'll get to that later.
And when it comes to being against marrying older women, I guess we can go into that separately again. But that again has nothing to do with the point and completely misunderstands the premise that IP bases his views on.
Yeah, and you said it well, and we'll get to that because they're going to try to claim that the fact that older women have high problems in pregnancy somehow debunks my whole point. We'll get to that. I know it's bad.
So this is like the dishonesty of Mike Jones and other liberals who will point to like the slightly increased risk. By the way, I hear my own voice. Is the volume like you're not wearing headphones? I guess
I am wearing headphones. So how about now?
They're having technical problems.
Okay,
just show that they are stressed and
they are so stressed with the problem.
I guess I was standing too close to the mic with my headphones.
Okay. So yeah, the dishonesty of this kind of tactic of looking at statistics, and they'll say, 28% higher. This shows that this is something unacceptable and it's immoral. This is pathological.
While they completely ignore this higher
what Mike Jones
group.
said. What Mike Jones said in the debate is when I pointed out the higher mortality for older women as well, for all of the risk factors that he mentioned. he said, oh, well, you have to consult with a doctor. So when it comes to the higher risk factors for these older groups, because it's acceptable according to liberal values, he'll just say, oh, well, it's not ideal, but it's still within an acceptable range. But when he points to the statistics of like that contradict or that support like a liberal ban on minor marriage or sexual activity for that age group, then he'll say that, oh, well, this is pathological. This needs to be banned. We need laws against this. How is that consistent? This is just a manipulation of statistics and a manipulation of...
It's not consistent. Okay, guys. How do I explain this? Like it's simple. Okay. A woman over 30 is fully mentally developed. She's fully an adult. She has the mental capacity to understand the risks and can consent to this kind of thing. A girl under 18 cannot. And again, you don't see the mental health correlations with the adults. You don't see the intimate partner violence correlations with the adults. The girls under 18, you do. So again, this is comparing apples to oranges. Girls cannot consent. Just because a 16-year-old can deliver a child better than a 39-year-old can, that doesn't mean it's going to be good for the child who's going to be born to the 16-year-old, because again, we see this correlate with bad parenting skills, with more mental health issues than the women that are much older. Okay? So again, they're comparing apples to oranges. They're thinking that somehow this is inconsistent, but they're not looking at my full case, which is just shows, and they're claiming I'm the one being dishonest, which is ironic.
It is just so stupid. He brought this this whole objection when you were discussing that during the debate, and he said something. You said in older people for whom it is unhealthy to bear children, they should go to a doctor and get an assessment from the doctor, and if it's not good for them, they should then not do it. They have the capacity to decide upon that. And he then, as a retort to that, was saying something like, then why can't we do the same thing for minors? Why can't they go to the doctor? And it is so stupid, because it's not the same, because there simply is no case where in children, in minors, it is healthy. It is categorically wrong, categorically not healthy. It is dangerous. Mostly, vastly. There is no point in taking a 6-year-old to the doctor and say, hey, doctor, is this girl ready to get pregnant?
Right. And they go on to note this, but this paper they're looking at, it doesn't have adjusted ratios. They say it's low. The maternal mortality rate is low in the 15 to 19 group because there are few births and the risk is low. The rates rise through to age 30 and 40, primarily because those numbers of birth are greater there. So there's no adjusted ratios here. So that needs to be noted here in this basic paper. If they're not, the reason the rates were so low in the 15 to 19 group in this paper is because they didn't adjust for anything when they looked at these 38 countries. So it's not really the best thing to use. But to be fair, Abdullah and Daniel do note that. I think Abdullah says it at one point. So I wanted to make sure that was noted.
We found very limited empirical support for the excessive risk of this magnitude among women aged 15 to 19. Because their data did not have under 15 age group, they were not able to run a proper analysis on that one, I believe. And then they say in one compilation of 13 data sets, the maternal mortality ratio between age 15 to 19 and 20 to 24 was actually equal or below 1.0 in 6 sets. So in 6 sets of data, the teenagers actually had better outcomes, and below 1.26 in 6 sets and 1.5 in one data set. So the science is far from the science does not support that 5 times claim in countrywide high quality data. They say,
Abdullah, the 5 times claim is for girls under 15. You're once again doing the same thing you did last stream. You're citing a paper where you looked at girls 15 to 19. You did this exact same thing with the Washington State study. And here you are saying it doesn't support it, where the study doesn't even look at girls under 15. What are you doing?
I don't understand. This guy must be pretty dumb for making the same mistake over and over again, or he just doesn't want to acknowledge it because he's dishonest.
I don't know.
Overall, in these data, the risk of death per birth for women aged 15 to 19 is just 28% higher, unadjusted 28% higher. the highest maternal mortality rate comes at age 30 to 34.
Oh, we better ban, marriage at 30 to 34.
Yeah, once they hit the age
we have
30, they have to be divorced.
Yeah, and once you're age 30, you have to get
You
divorced.
cannot stay with your husband anymore.
Yeah,
Too risky.
yeah. You just have to fornicate, but make sure you use protection.
Yeah, so that's
I
because
can't
he
believe
couldn't say
this is
that,
real,
he
man.
tried to bring up a
What's that?
I can't believe this is real. I can't believe these people are real.
Yeah, I mean it's bad. Let's keep going because Daniel's about to make a mistake here, and I'll show a paper to support that.
whole other point. He said, well, consent. He said, 40-year-old women can consent to the high risks.
Hold on. Wait for this.
And just a completely separate point. Well, if the teenager cannot consent to the high risks, maybe we should ask for someone who can consent for them. But that is also unacceptable for him.
Wasn't there a Muslim that once tweeted like, how is it right when there's parental consent?
Yes.
Like a parent, same thing. Like apparently they think if a parent can give their girl away to be married and used by some grown man, that's okay. Like that just makes it sound worse. Like you can't do that. Like what is going on?
I can give you that quickly if you want to show that to the audience here.
Yeah, go for it. Because how is it like? I forget who it was, but it was some Muslim saying that it's not marital rape if there's because the parents consented to it when they gave their girl to the guy.
I can quickly share my screen just to show it to you to everyone.
I'll put it on that. Put it up as soon as you share it
to avoid the thing of so this is right here.
Got it. Yeah, this guy. Yeah.
Farid, he's known as Farid Response on YouTube. He said, I love how so many of these Islamophobes don't have the ability to represent me fairly by calling this child rape. He's talking about Muhammad's marriage to Aisha. How is it child rape when there is parental consent?
Oh, God, help us.
How is it child rape when there is parental consent? So if the parents decide for the child, then it's not child rape. Then it's okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry, guys. I'm not happy in. As Abdullah was complaining earlier, I'm not so happy to be going over this when I'm having to look at utterly evil things like this. But wow, this is interesting. But yeah, apparently a parent can consent and have their daughter basically groomed and then given off to some guy that's going to abuse her.
No, but they can consent to fornicate. Like that's the contradiction. They can consent to go to prom and get railed by the football team. Like they can consent to all of that. They can
like who said I was in favor of that? I mean, like again, if two children mess around, neither of them can technically consent to each other. So this is comparing apples to oranges.
Here is the thing. Let's say you have two 13-year-olds, right? Who are very close to each other, who have developed a relationship with each other and who started fornicating with each other. You don't approve of this. The older people, the parents don't approve of this. The authorities, they don't approve of this. But this is what they do. And they will probably be taught that this is wrong, or that they will be taught about the implications of it, health aspects of it, and all of that. On the other hand, you have a 14-year-old or 13-year-old with the acknowledgement and the intention of parents and others getting married to somebody who's, for example, 25 years old or 50 years old, in the example of Muhammad, where you are not dealing with something that is frowned upon, that you disapprove of, but that you have to somehow control and educate people on. You are directly endorsing, enabling, and doing it. You are directly saying this girl, she can't consent. In the other case, she also can't consent, but hey, you know what? I'm going to marry this one to a 50-year-old man, and he is going to have sex with her because, otherwise she will just be fornicating. There is a completely huge difference between these two things, and I don't understand how one can possibly not see that.
Yeah, I don't get, I get it either. And again, they're using this data from 15 to 19 groups to justify all of child marriage. They've not made any actual arguments in favor of child marriage. They're just shifting the goalposts and saying the burden has not been met.
In consent to all of that. So if there's such a risk factor, why are there no laws on the books that will prevent that or punish that kind of behavior? Christians have no answer to that, or at least these liberal Christians don't, because the risk factor is there. If you say that, oh well, no, we want to we have to teach teenagers how to practice safe sex. I mean, this is the liberal response.
Yeah.
We have to teach teenagers how to practice safe sex. We have to give them condoms so that they can fornicate without pregnancy. Okay, I mean, why didn't the UN go to all of these countries that it's trying to regulate and tell them, rather than saying, okay, no more child marriage, no more minor marriage, you have to be 18 years of age. Why didn't they just say, okay, fine, you have this practice of minor marriage, just practice safe sex? You know, just be judicious in.
They didn't do that, huh?
Oh,
they didn't do that.
Boy.
Well, let me pull up something here for Daniel here,
Oh,
since
boy.
he thinks they didn't actually do that. Here it is. How increased contraceptive use has reduced maternal mortality. Okay, so no, they did go, and they have been giving more contraceptive use to areas of the developing world, and it has been decreasing maternal mortality rates. Yes, they're encouraging a decrease in child marriage, but they're also giving them contraception. So no, Daniel, this has been shown that it has been helping these poor girls in these situations. Like there's the paper right here. So no, they have been doing that as well. It's not an either or. They're saying that probably shouldn't do child marriage, but also here's contraception because we know you know people are still going to mess around. Like, so no, this is not true at all.
This is by the way, much of how his vilified understanding of how the vilified concept of liberals endorsing safe sex is developed, how that is motivated, where you will not be told by these liberal evil behemoths that it is completely fine for you to go around and have sex as soon as you can with whoever possible, and that you can get as he wants to word it, get railed by the whole football team. It's the idea here is okay. Young people are engaging in something. We can tell them that they should not be doing this because it is dangerous and it is wrong, it is harmful mentally and medically, physically, and all that. We can educate them on this, but they will be doing it nevertheless. Because they are doing it, what we should be doing is go in there and give them a proper way to control it and to reduce the harm if they are going to do it anyway. So the idea here is not, oh guys, you're 12, do whatever you want, it's perfectly fine. No, the idea is, okay, you are 12, you should be careful, but you are doing this, let me tell you how to be safer. He's completely misrepresenting the whole idea here behind safe sex anyway.
And he does this, like he did this on Twitter recently. He said, you argue this because conveniently there are no scientific papers arguing that minors having sex is unhealthy. No, again, this paper here, this umbrella study pointed out there's all sorts of psychiatric issues from childhood sexual abuse. So they do argue that there is problems from child sexual activities. I mean, like, I don't know what to tell this guy. Like he says there's no studies, and then there actually is studies of child sexual abuse. I mean, it's ridiculous. And again, we still see all the mental health issues, the intimate partner violence, all of that stuff from child marriage. And he's just saying that doesn't exist. And that's ridiculous. Of course it exists.
It doesn't exist in his mind.
Yeah. So, okay, let's get to the Washington State paper, because last time they cited this Washington State paper here, this one here. And they use this to sort of argue for child marriage. They only put a graph up on the screen. And then they tweeted about it later. I missed that part. But here's the actual paper. And they using this to sort of argue that child marriage is okay. Now, again, as I pointed out, this only looks at 15 to 19 groups. And again, it's irrelevant to the status of girls under 15. And again, you're including legal adults, 18, 19-year-olds. So 40% of what's in your actual sample size doesn't even count for child marriage because they're already legal adults. And again, most of the girls in the 15 to 19 group, as I pointed out in my opening statement in the debate, I've already fully matured because again, puberty, physical maturity is basically complete for girls between 15 and 17. So let's hear what they have to say here about this, because they want to really, they're going to spend like another hour on this one, which goes to show you they don't really have much data left if this is all they can do for an hour.
Yeah.
Like, go focus on an irrelevant paper.
Now legendary Washington paper.
Yeah.
That same curve appears right here. That same curve is evident here.
Right.
So because this is an area with very high quality healthcare, the curve is a little depressed. But even with the depressed curve, you can see the J shape taking hold in the data, then unadjusted for anything. My point was, even this J-shaped curve, which is not, making any kind of point against the marriage of teenagers, even this J-shaped curve is not fully accurate, because when you actually control it for a wide range of confounders, you get a flat line going from age 15 to until age 30, when the risk begins to maybe increase a little.
Yeah.
So this is the legendary Washington paper, and our opponent had a lot to say about it. We have just reached the 2-hour mark. Should we?
All right, so stop there. I want to remind people what Abdullah actually said about this. And so at 1:06:30, he said, the authors reported that childbirth between ages of 15 to 19 is perfectly fine. It's basically equal to giving birth in early 30s or late 20s. Well, again, that's not what they said. They do report there are higher rates of maternal sepsis, for example, as I pointed out. And the reason why that was relevant is because, again, I was debating Daniel, not Abdullah, who has said he's against technology because you get modern industrialism with all of its technology, you get more doctors, but you get modernism, you get feminism, you get secularism. So we got to look at what countries that don't have all the modern technology to prevent high risk things like sepsis actually do. And so I cited this paper last time. I'm just going to bring it back up again. I believe is this it? Yeah, this is the risk factors for obstetric fistula. Clinical review. Teenagers account for either 8 to 9 to 86% of obstetric fistula patients at the time of treatment. This was done in a lot of countries that don't have the high rate of medical health care. And they know they need to be efforts to reduce teenage pregnancies because of how high the fistula thing is. Now, you're not necessarily going to die from a fistula, but it's still a complication. The study they're looking at is looking at complications, but mostly maternal mortality rates. So you can still have physical complications even without necessarily having a death rate issue. So that's still an issue here. But they're going to focus heavily on the maternal mortality rates here. But what I want to do is just want to bring up this paper again here. Here it is. So this one, once again. Did I push the right up one? No, yeah, I did. Okay, good. So this is the Washington Post paper they cite. And I want to say, this is what I was going on when I read the actual thing. So they're going to take issue with highlights I made. Apparently they think the fact that I put the study on the screen and highlighted certain parts means I was ignoring certain parts of it. No, I was just focusing on the passages relevant to their claims. That's what I highlighted. I didn't say all of it was irrelevant, but I use highlights to just sort of highlight, sort of just like, show stuff that. But they show our results confirm that prenatal mortality and neonatal morbidity are elevated among teenage mothers and older mothers as compared with mothers ages 25 to 29, with the exception from neonatal death with rates higher 50. This is the associations we see here. But here's what I think I want to get to. Our findings of an elevated risk of sepsis among teen mothers is also notable. Sepsis is recognized as one of the leading causes of maternal mortality. Prior studies of the association between young maternal age and sepsis are sparse. Okay, untreated sepsis may lead to a cascade of sequential organ failure. It's possible that the signs of generalized infection are masked among young mothers by other mechanisms, leading to a delay in timely recognition and antibiotic treatment. And healthy women can compensate and mask the symptoms, such as decreased levels of consciousness. So if you don't have, now the reason the way you deal with sepsis, as Abdullah notes in this stream, is with antibiotics, which is available in Washington State. But you're not going to have those available in places like Mali or Togo, countries I cited in the debate, which were relevant because, again, Daniel was arguing that child marriage should be accepted globally now. Okay, is Daniel now conceding, okay, that a girl 15 to 19 can have children as long as she is Western medicine and can have access to antibiotics Is Daniel actually conceding that with using Abdullah and citing this paper? And is he agreeing that girls that don't have access should wait? I mean, because I'm confused now on why they're actually using this. It's not really going to help their overall case that child marriage should just be happening around the world. And everyone, I mean, will get better for girls if they became child mothers.
What he argues is that we need to modernize and develop and adopt modern medicine and feminism and all the modern philosophy and life that comes with it, basically, and then everything is okay, right?
Yeah, maybe that's what Daniel.
That's his whole argument, right? His whole point when in that one speech that he gives is that with modernization, everything basically happens as a slippery slope. Modernization brings feminism, brings societal corruption, and so on. So even development in a society comes with all of these things out of necessity, and therefore it is wrong.
Yeah, I know, and that's what I wanted to point out here. Let's see, did I have anything else I wanted to cite here? No, I mean, I cited the umbrella study on the terms of child sexual abuse, the one on obstetric fistula as a clinical review. So there are still issues. Again, I'm not saying that, and again, I'm perfectly fine noting that group 15 to 19 is going to be better bearing children in the group under 15, because once again, as I noted in my opening statement, they've completed puberty for the most part. So again, this is just entirely irrelevant to the whole point, as I've noted before. So where did I want to go here? Let's move up to 29. And again, I would still argue that girls should not be having children before 18, or probably even before 20, because again, they're still associated with poor mental health outcomes, poor parenting skills, as I noted. I don't see how this saves their case just so they're physically going to not die. Again, they're focusing on such a small aspect of my case.
Statistical power to actually.
All right, hold on. I went to the wrong time marker here. I'm going to go up to 204. 30 is what I have here.
Acceptable. This is
what he's doing.
Joke.
Yeah.
13.
Because again, it's irrelevant, but this is what he's doing.
He's claiming it's irrelevant. We are directly debunking his claims of harm between ages 15 to 19. It is up to him to demonstrate to us any harm he claims, any massive harm worse than anything that women over 30 experience.
They have a very selective memory, I'll tell you.
This is so pointless, man.
Yeah. This is why I'm skipping ahead, because again, a lot of this is just irrelevant, and we've addressed this. Here's the John Doe thing.
This Washington study, here it is. So
well, there was one person in the live chat, someone called John Doe, who the moment we put up the graph, he started freaking out and asking, "Oh, do you guys know where the study is? I missed the name. Did anyone catch the name? Can you guys ask? Can someone ask what the study is? Oh man, so he actually reverse image searched the graph we posted, couldn't find it that way, and he went, he went asking people, having a whole fit about this.
Yeah,
and then
no, we don't know if John Doe is actually Mike Jones, but it's interesting.
Yeah, there was an interesting character with name John Doe. So John Doe is, for viewers who might not be aware, John Doe is a name used in American hospitals for people who come in without a known name.
Right.
So if the patient doesn't have an ID card on him and he's unconscious, he might be admitted to the hospital under the name John Doe. It's like an anonymous kind of name that's used. Right. So that was the name he chose to go with.
Conspiracy theorists are very interesting. Oh, someone in the chat is saying mean things. Therefore, it's Mike Jones.
And so when you told me that they made this up, that they thought some guy named John Doe in the comment section is actually you, I thought it's because that person started like fighting with them and doing some serious stuff. But it's just this is it. He became too curious and he became a character, and we think that he might be Mike Jones. That's it.
Yeah, and when people thought that, as we noted earlier, that maybe Dr. Abdullah was this other Muslim apologist, we ran checks. We were like, maybe not. The voices sound familiar, but it's probably not the same guy. They're jumping on something that's useful to them. Whereas when we had this issue, trying to figure out who Abdullah was, let's hold back. We need more data. So
they look at a comment, an anonymous comment.
I know. What the heck?
I'm not going to nitpick here, but I don't know. I'm not going to nitpick about his description of what John Doe is, but whatever.
Yeah. All right. Let's go through a little bit more of this.
This is a statement that
I'm not going to spend too much time on this Washington State paper because, again, as I pointed out, it's irrelevant. Most of they're just looking at 15 to 19s. They're not dividing them up. They're not in a lot of it. There's actually legal adults in here. But I do want to get to one point where Abdullah shoots himself in the foot. And I think we're coming up on that. Let me see.
that I wanted to talk about a little bit. He said, yes, when you adjust for all the ratios, a lot of the problems that result from girls 15 to 19 decrease thanks to modern technology, Western medicine. He seems to suggest that the study is adjusting for modern technology and Western medicine. What do you think about that, Daniel? So
I'm
he's
not sure.
thinking, so that's difference between the blue graph and the orange graph we showed. He thinks that's because that's thanks to Western medicine. And then he says, even with all the medical technology out there, you still can't get rid of all the risk factors.
Right.
That's not what a risk factor is. I think he means adverse outcomes, bad outcomes. He's using the term adjust wrong. He's using the term risk factor wrong here.
And confounders.
And does he understand confounders? I'm not too sure. Like later in his stream, there is one indication that he might understand confounders. And then right here, right now, he thinks...
Okay, no, that's not what I said. I said when you adjust for the ratios, a lot of the problems that result from girls 15 to 19 decrease thanks to modern technology. Because as Abdullah notes in his own stream, girls that have a high risk for sepsis in 15 to 19, you just give them antibiotics. Can't do that in places like sub-Saharan Africa or Bangladesh. They don't have all the technology or they don't have access to modern medicine. So you're going to have a lower mortality rate for sure.
And I wonder why Daniel Haqiqatjou doesn't say anything about this so far.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, again, they focus so much on this paper, and I'm just like, it's so irrelevant to the point of child marriage because that's not even what they're looking at here. Let me see if I can find where they actually start talking about it. I'll just move ahead here to 216 here because that's the next time marker I have here.
How much is the elevated risk, Mike? Please tell us.
Yeah.
He doesn't seem to be able to tell us what the elevated risk is. Instead, he just plays a video of you from like last year saying, making some points about technological development and, pro-technology, anti-technology debate.
Mm-hmm.
And then he takes that and then he says, oh, you see, Daniel doesn't like technology and modern medicine. Therefore, he cannot argue for modern medicine. Well,
Right.
First of all, I am the one arguing for modern medicine. So are you trying to refute me by something Daniel has said last year?
Are you part of the
Secondly,
debate,
that's
man? Oh my! Oh,
Exactly.
Are you
Except-
the opponent in the debate? Jeez.
Yeah. Again, this is a debate that Daniel challenged me on. I'm confronting him on his view. Does Abdullah agree with me though that girls that don't have access to modern medicine should not have children under the age of 19? Is that what he's saying here? Because his study shows he says you have high rates of sepsis and you can't get access to antibiotics. Should you not? Does Abdullah agree with me? Is he saying that girls before the rise of antibiotics should not have children? I mean, what was going on with Aisha then and Muhammad?
Yeah.
Is he saying that was wrong because there was no access to antibiotics back then?
Exactly.
So yeah, again, this is just them shooting themselves in the foot. This doesn't show child marriage should be acceptable. I mean, the debate was not, is child marriage over the age of 15 okay as long as you have access to antibiotics?
Yeah.
I mean, again, I would still say no because, again, mental health issues, stress issues, poor parenting skills, intimate partner violence. But sure, physically, they're going to be okay as long as they have access to antibiotics, doctors that can perform procedures to help get the child out. Like, doesn't compare.
They're just reaching so much to somehow make their point, which they cannot make because none of the evidence actually supports their idea, their terrible idea. I wonder, Mike, if we lived in a weird world and you looked through all the research and all the scientific research, everything that we have came to the conclusion that it is completely okay and even beneficial to engage in child marriage, would you change your position on this?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Now let's look at it from their position. Look at all the evidence shows that there is no benefit, and that overall it is more harmful. Overwhelming evidence shows that it is significantly more harmful. But what they do is to instead resort to these fallacies, resort to saying, well, this is a conspiracy, I will ignore that one, and this one says something about 15 to 18-year-olds, and I will just connect that to my actual argument. That is what they do. They are not honest seekers of the actual truth that is underlying the whole debate here. They just want to confirm their own ideas. That's it.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up. That's a good point. I mean, just they're not following. And as they said in the beginning, if the science disagrees with Islam, they're just going to go with Islam.
Mm-hmm.
It's an extended discussion that Daniel and I can have later, or you and Daniel could have later. But
it doesn't matter. Like the modern technology, the thing is that the modern technology point doesn't really affect the risk factors, because everyone
within
is
this study.
Within this study, because everyone has access to the same technology. So if you take away the modern technology, then the mortality rates or the risk factor rates go up for everyone, for all the age groups by a certain amount. So this is not like a gotcha or like some kind of really significant.
No, Daniel, because once again, if you look at countries outside where there's Western medicine, as I cited the clinical review, there was higher rates of obstetric fistulas for teens than women without the access to technology. And again, if girls under 19 are having higher rates of sepsis and they don't have access to antibiotics, that's going to increase their mortality rate much higher than girls that are over that age point. We have to remember that in the ancient world, a lot of children died before the age of 25 because of disease.
Mm-hmm.
They had very high levels of disease. So if you made it to 25, you're very likely to make it to 50. But if you didn't, you're very likely to die. That's why the life expectancy was so low in the ancient world. It was around 31 or 32, because people under 25 were dying so much from disease. Antibiotics and vaccines have really fixed that. So no, if you get rid of all the modern technology, like what you've advocated for, Daniel, no, you're going to see you're going to go return to those very high rates of death for children, which is much higher than it is over 25. It's not a comparison.
Yeah.
So here, let's get to I pressed them on this study on purpose because I wanted them to do something here, to talk more about it. And they're going to shoot themselves in the foot here. So they're going to talk about the purposes of the paper. And I think this is relevant. So here.
Too technical, please stop me. People in the comments, if you are confused, please let me know if you need me to clarify any point. I don't want to bore you guys to death.
Just go ahead.
Yeah, so the author summary. There's an interesting point here. Why was this study done? The study was done because the authors wanted to look at morbidity and mortality rates at high maternal ages, like late pregnancies, 30s, 40s.
Okay, the paper's not even about child marriage. Thank you for admitting that. It's looking at whether older women are higher risk, and the 15 to 19 is being used as a group for comparison. That's why they're not dividing the 15s from the 16s to the 17s, because they're not looking at that. They're looking at the how younger women compared to the problems we see with older women. And it's funny because this refutes Daniel from the debate, because he claimed there weren't studies done on older women because there's a conspiracy. They don't care about women having older pregnancy complications because that's fine. They're just going to focus on the young ones. So this is refuting Daniel from the debate, and when we were having our back and forth on this. So it's just kind of one of those like ironic points they have to bring up now.
Daniel, this is the point where you're supposed to sit down and say, hey, I need to clarify something. I was wrong. As everybody can see, I was wrong. This actually refutes one of my main points, and I acknowledge that. And then you can move on and still stick to your position. Maybe you can find different evidence. Maybe you can analyze the evidence here and do whatever you want with it. But at first, it is time for you to sit down and say, I was wrong because of the evidence here. Can you just do that just for once?
Yeah, it's interesting. And again, they spend a lot of time like just kind of going through this paper. Just like, again, this is so irrelevant. It's not even the point. For them to argue for child marriage, they're admitting now they're citing a paper that's not even on child marriage. And they're trying to read between the lines. And again, this doesn't look at where child marriage is heavily practiced, like in sub-Saharan Africa, Bangladesh. It looks at places where like you're not going to see high mortality rates because you can cure a lot of the issues with antibiotics. different procedures to protect these girls. So this is, again, irrelevant to the point, should child marriage be allowed right now in major Islamic countries, like, for example, or major Christian countries? The argument we're making is no, it should not be allowed for a multitude of issues. And now, again, remind the audience, notice how little they're actually focusing on from the harm of child marriage. They've completely ignored all the mental issues, completely ignored the intimate partner violence, the high rates of suicide, the physical complications like obstetric fistulas. And what are they focusing on? They're not going to die. I mean, as long as they're over 15, they're not going to die, guys. It's okay. Like, that's their basic argument at this point.
Yeah, all the
It's
other problems, boo-hoo. Yeah.
Boo-hoo. Yeah, that's their argument to that. All right. So again, I'm not going to, again, if you guys want to watch Abdullah go through this paper, just go watch Daniel's stream. I'm not going to go through it all because, again, it's irrelevant to the main point. This is their one thing to go to, as I pointed out. None of this justifies child marriage. To use this paper to justify child marriage, what's not even looking at that, again, it's not a very honest tactic.
1.3 times, 1.7 times, 1.6, 4.7. So he conveniently skips over all of these massive risks in 35 years of age, 40 years of age. I mean, even at 30 years, girls have twice the risk of cardiomyopathy, having, permanent cardiac damage during the childbirth.
30 years old girls?
And he skips all of this.
Yeah, well, here, let him finish, and then we'll comment. He's trying to say that Daniel's going to sum up some things here.
Parts fixates on this one outcome. So
Yeah.
what the
I mean,
authors...
this completely destroys everything that he said in his stream.
Yeah,
Like, no doubt about it.
Yeah, and this is...
Completely destroys everything, guys, because women over, what, like 35 are at a much higher risk. I mean, like, at best, they could be arguing that women over 35 should start having children. That does not mean girls under 18 should have children. Okay, that just because you can show problems with one group, that doesn't mean the other group is magically okay now. Like, at best, they could make that argument. Again, I already said in the debate, if a doctor tells a woman over 35 don't have children, she should probably listen. But also, she's an adult. She can consent to that if she wants. She's not a underdeveloped mentally child at this point. I mean, children are just not fully developed mentally until they're 25 at this point, now we know. So it's not a comparison. And again, we set the age at 18, as I pointed out in the debate. That's when physical maturity is complete. They move on to adulthood. Their brain is still developing, sure, but you got to start treating them like adults so they can continue to grow with the plasticity of their brain, that kind of thing. You just can't expect them to be an adult because they need to grow with the way their brain is growing through the plastic changes that are going on.
Who sits down and actually thinks, oh yeah, this is a great point, I will use this, since older women also it's not good for older women, therefore that should be banned too, and IP is not advocating for that. He is only focused on child marriage, therefore he is wrong and I will use this now. Daniel, thank you, you have destroyed him. Who in the world actually sits down and does this?
I don't know, but I mean, some of his fans probably are like that, where they think this somehow destroys my whole point, because you can show in a state like Washington State where they can have all the antibiotics they need, 15 to 19-year-olds are fine. But again, let's go back to the study I wanted to bring back up here. The one I cited from Latin America here. So this is an important paper that where they actually separate them out. So let me pull this up here. Here it is. So again, remember this one where they separated them all out? So you can see the adjusted ratios here between the 15, the 16, and the 18s. 15-year-olds are at a very high risk, okay? Much higher than 16-year-olds who have mostly completed puberty at that point, but 15 and under. So they're including in the Washington State study 15-year-olds with these other groups here, the 16, the 17, 18, and 19. And you can see that these groups that have completed puberty are going to skew the data for the 15-year-olds. Mm-hmm. It's not an honest tack. It's not. But the study authors are not looking at child marriage. They're not looking at 15-year-olds. They're using the 15 to 19 group as a comparison for older women. It's not a comparison at all. So like, what are they thinking using this Washington State paper to make their case? Again, it doesn't address nearly half the issues that I brought up. Nearly half. And again, it doesn't address anything under 15. And you can see problems with under 15. But it doesn't address all these other complications that come with child marriage. So they're citing a paper not even on child marriage. It's wow, there's a lot of issues here.
It doesn't have to. All they have to do is to just mention that it is research and that it's evidence for them. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, are their fans going to actually fact check them? I don't know, because
No.
Daniel was citing Bruce Ryan for what, 4 years? None of his followers thought to read the papers. They just took his word at it. Like, I love it when my followers email me and go, hey, I was reading in the book you cited and I had a question about this section. Can you clarify this or can you comment on this? Great. I'm glad you're reading the stuff I cite. That's what I want to see. Apparently, Daniel's followers didn't know that he was citing Bruce Ryan for years. And yeah. So again, notice throughout this stream, we're 3 hours in. The only thing they focused on was maternal mortality rates for 3 hours for the most part. Other than a couple little minor things here. So we're going to get to Daniel's stuff now on attraction. So this is his big thing. He's going to move and he's going to try to argue on attraction.
Years of age, after which it starts increasing. And Mike Jones said, "Oh, they don't have the under 15. That was my whole point." No, that was not your whole point. You did not argue that marriage was only bad before 15 years of age. This refutes a large portion of the data that he cited, and this also refutes a lot of the unadjusted studies without regression models.
Right.
And that's the reason we wanted to.
Do you see the straw man there? It refutes a large part of the data. I said, no, it doesn't. It refutes barely nothing. And I cited studies with regression models, which you conveniently forget. Again, this is looking in countries, again, this is looking in the United States. It's not looking at what child marriage affects girls 15 to 19 in places like Togo or Mali where they don't have antibiotics. Again, very poor argument here. 30. Okay, so now let's get to the attraction stuff here.
This. So
here we go.
Yeah, actually, I read part of this Nature article.
Oh wait, he's going back to this stupid Nature article. He's going to cite. I want to get to the attraction stuff because he's just going to repeat a lot of the stuff he said in the beginning, and I don't think we need to address that again. Okay, so yeah, we're almost done here, but let's let Daniel try to argue for a little bit of this attraction stuff. Now, actually, let's remind people first before we get to that what he actually did.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to put these slides back up on the screen here. So I'm just going to share my entire screen again. So here's one of the things he cited. He also cited this lovely graph here, which I demonstrated in the last stream. This graph does not support this. The study does not support this graph. I don't know where this graph comes from, but he was trying to argue that men are most attracted to 14 or 15-year-olds. Therefore, child marriage should be allowed, because why would God create a world where men are most attracted to 15 or 14-year-olds and then outlaw child marriage? It's a naturalistic fallacy. Now, he also cited this graph here, which in the stream, I didn't know where he was getting this from. Someone contacted me after and said, I think this is the paper he's using, which we'll look at later. And it is, because if I looked at the numbers and the dots here and compared them with the actual study, and yeah, they line up. The numbers are coming from this, but we'll show that this taking the paper out of context, and they didn't look at the actual p-values that were used in the study. So these are the things he was trying to defend last stream. Daniel doesn't do that this stream. He doesn't try to defend these initial claims he made that men are more attracted to 14-year-olds, as you'll see. Instead, he's just going to argue that hebephiles exist. That's his now argument he's going to make. And he's going to argue that hebephilia is not a mental disorder, which is entirely irrelevant to the point of child marriage.
Earlier as hebephilia, which means being attracted to pubescent girls. Pubescent girls who are in the process of puberty, or they've just completed puberty. It can be different age range, because as you know, as we've discussed many times by now, there's not one set age of puberty. There's a range for the puberty process. So there are different papers. Like there was a big debate within the psychological community. The experts were debating whether this is a paraphilia. This is some kind of mental dysfunction. A man who is over 18 attracted to a girl who's under 18 and who might be even, in the process of puberty or have just engaged in puberty. This is what they call hebephilia. So there's different studies that talk about this debate. There are many studies. I typically have cited in the past Bruce Ryan's paper. Bruce Ryan's paper on this, which Inspiring Philosophy, Mike Jones has commented on and said, I've misrepresented the study, whatever. So I'm just going to go to other studies.
Okay, so is Daniel finally admitting Bruce Ryan was a bad source to use for him, because Bruce Ryan agrees with zero of Daniel's conclusions. Zero. Is he finally admitting that for 4 years citing this guy, that was a bad idea?
No, well, he just said whatever, so I guess.
Well, there
that's
we
his
got it.
conclusion.
Okay.
That's his
I
conclusion.
guess we will never hear him cite Bruce Ryan again, because if he does, my followers will easily bring up his papers. And so he doesn't agree with anything you're saying.
Studies now to show the same conclusion that Ryan makes, others are making as well. So here's an interesting paper that is like a meta overview of the entire debate on hebephilia, a post-mortem dissection by Patrick Singy. It's in the Archives of Sexual Behavior, which is one of the main journals that are used to talk about like sexual disorders or paraphilias, etc. So you can read it yourself, but here's a good introduction. He says, the category of hebephilia denotes an erotic preference for individuals who are in the Tanner stages 2 to 3. The Tanner stages describe the development of puberty from 1, meaning pre-pubertal, to 5, fully mature. They're determined by visible characteristics such as the size of breasts and genitalia or the presence of pubic hair. Due to natural variation, the correspondence between physical characteristics and age can only be approximate, but Tanner stages 2 and 3 roughly correspond to ages 11 through 15. Hebephilia thus falls between pedophilia, which is the erotic preference for prepubescent children, and ephebophilia, which was first described by Hirschfeld in 1906 as the non-pathological erotic preference for young people between the ages of 16 and 20. So even in the 16 to 20, which no one considers to be pathological, that Jones is still talking about that range, because he says anything under 18 is something that is wrong and immoral. It's attraction to a teenager who is between 16 and age 18. But this is going further. Hebephilia is going further to ages 11 through 15. So this is the debate on whether hebephilia is this erotic preference for pubescent minors. Is that actually pathological?
And they mentioned a Hirschfeld, 1906 Hirschfeld. It's an interesting name. Where's that guy from? What kind of?
Well,
background
let's
does he have?
not get into that.
No,
the pathological status.
Can we check early life on that? So
yeah, go
these
check
are
it out.
basically-
Wow.
So
These are
let's not get into
basically-
that. Please, Dr.
Yeah, but-
Abdullah, please control yourself. Control yourself. The path.
Wow.
This guy is such a racist. Oh my god.
Wow.
Yeah,
I'm
who
not
cares?
surprised at all at his racism and typical anti-Semitism here. I'm not surprised at all, but I'm kind of surprised at the fact that he actually has to bring it up here in response to research.
Yeah, I actually felt bad for Daniel at this point. He looks so embarrassed. He's like, no, stop. Don't do this. What are you doing?
Jeez, but this is.
Yeah.
So I grew up in a very religious Muslim household and a very religious Muslim environment, and so the whole thing here, I guess, some people or many people can understand what's going on here. The guy is hearing a name that to him sounds Jewish or Yiddish, and then he immediately tries to go after his Jewish heritage, and bring the whole debate to that, reduce it all to that, and just go after Jews. Just another way to dismiss something by his hate for other people here, Jews. And Daniel then stops him because he's aware that this would probably really harm the point that they're trying to make here, or that this would probably severely discredit them here. At least he's smart enough to notice that. But I grew up in a very religious setting and a very religious Muslim family, and it is completely normal, mainstream, not out of the ordinary, not surprising to have this severe Jew hatred in Muslim communities. It is very normal. We have studies, polls which show that Jews are the most disliked and severely disliked people in Muslim cultures, and we learn a lot of. I mean, I learned when I was 6 years old that Jews are evil. They are there to deceive us and to betray us and to possibly kill us. And there will soon be a time where we will fight the Jews and we will kill them all, and so on. I know this is pretty rough stuff to talk about for your channel, but that's the stuff that I learned as a child, and that's the stuff that many people learn as children. People learn that there is a prophecy that they will fight and kill the Jews in the near future, possibly when the end times come, and so on. So there's just a huge vilification going on. But it's surprising to me that he would actually sit down and bring that into this debate. Wow, man.
Oh, by the way, AP, you got a Muslim fan here, it looks. Looks like maybe it says.
We Muslims love AP, speaks the truth and only the truth. Daniel Haqiqatjou does not represent us, brothers. I hope this is genuine. Thank you.
Yeah. Bruce Ryan's paper about homosexual development with young teen relationships. IP, you should have pressed him more and humiliated him on that. Him more on the day. Yeah, it was limited time in the debate. Sure, he constantly interrupted me. I did bring it up in my rebuttal for sure. Yeah, I would have loved to bring that up more. But even Robert Spencer going on taking a Twitter thread from Messianic Apostate, who is a ex-Muslim Christian now, went through all of the Bruce Ryan stuff I cited and made this big long thing that was put out there. So appreciate them doing that. But let's look at this really quickly. So Daniel is not defending his claim anymore that men are most attracted to 14 or 15-year-olds, because the study I cited from 1995 last time basically debunked that. They're not. He's just pointing out hebephilia exists. AP, do you think hebephilia exists?
Yes.
Do you think that hebephilia should be practiced?
No.
Okay, yeah, exactly. Daniel's whole argument here is that hebephilia exists. It's not a mental disorder. Okay, so what, Daniel? So what? Like that doesn't prove anything. Okay, I can agree with you. Like, let's say studies came out like in 20 years that zoophilia is not a mental disorder. I still think it should be outlawed and wrong just because it doesn't qualify as a mental disorder. What these researchers are showing is that sometimes humans have natural tendencies that cause harm, like hebephilia. Okay, that doesn't mean it's causing a mental disorder and that they're harming themselves, like bipolar disorder or schizophrenia. But it still is a harmful practice that needs to be curbed. This is what Bruce Ryan's basic point is in his research. All these papers are arguing is that hebephilia is not a mental disorder. So what? There are men and women in prison right now who have committed murder. The reason they committed murder is not because they had a mental disorder. Humans do all sorts of horrible, harmful things all the time to each other. That doesn't mean their actions are the result of a mental disorder. Hebephilia does not need to be a mental disorder for us to point out it's wrong. Yet Daniel goes on for basically an hour, citing paper after paper, showing hebephilia is not a mental disorder. So what? I never said it was a mental. Cite where I've said hebephilia is a mental disorder.
He did the same thing with pedophilia before, and basically, it implies the same thing here, where he tries to go to the whole idea of he there actually reverses this issue and basically argues that experts, psychologists disagree on. Psychiatrists disagree on what pedophilia is, and they say that this is normal, and they are treating it as a disorder, and thereby tackling it because they want to represent it as such. And it's just he doesn't know where exactly to stand on the whole issue. He just goes whatever supports his point whenever he wants it to support his point. And that's not what the discussion is about. It's not what the discussion is about at all. It is about the action, the act, and the implications, the consequences of it.
Yeah, and these same authors are using homosexuality as an example. Homosexuality is not a mental disorder, even though in the past it was thought to be. Hebephilia denotes an erotic preference for individuals who are individuals, not just girls. So if Daniel is using this data to try to argue for child marriage, is he also agreeing with man-boy attraction, that that's okay, that homosexual hebephilia is okay? Because they don't distinguish in these papers. Bruce Ryan does, and he mostly argues that hebephilic interaction between men and boys is not harmful for them, which I disagree with from a whole bunch of other research. But why are you citing this? Homosexuality is not a mental disorder, yet Daniel thinks they deserve the death penalty. Is Daniel going to agree homosexuality should be practiced just because it doesn't show in the DSM-5 as a mental disorder? Like, it doesn't make any sense. He's cherry picking. He's picking what he wants here. None of this shows hebephilia should be practiced. And none of this shows homosexuality is somehow wrong based on his own reasoning. He would use religious arguments for that. Here he wants to use this research to show hebephilia is okay, therefore child marriage is okay. But he won't use the same reasoning for homosexuality. He's inconsistent.
When you brought this up to him, he said something like that he doesn't agree with everything that is, of course, presented, found, or implied here, and which basically just means he takes the source and he takes whatever he agrees with from the source, and whatever he disagrees with, he does not accept. within the same source and then just goes on with his life,
Yeah.
which is just ridiculous.
So this is another one of the graphs Daniel cited from his last stream, trying to argue that men are more attracted to adolescents than they are to older women. Okay, this is the paper where this comes from. If you compare the numbers you see there, that's where they're getting this stuff from in this paper. Now, what you don't see in the graph is when you read the paper is they didn't just look at what they did is they looked at wow, that's just not supposed to. Okay, here we go. They looked at 3 different things: face, body odor, and voice. Okay, they noted that of the most attracted voices were adult women, not young girls. The least attracted were women in menopause. Body odor, there's nothing there. But when they looked at facial attraction, so here's what I want to point out what they said. Okay, both young girls and adult women were judged to be significantly more attractive than menopausal women, whereas the difference in attractiveness ratings between young girls and adult women was not quite significant. For vocal attraction, adult women received higher attractiveness ratings than did young girls than menopausal women. Now, the reason why they say it's not quite significant is because you look at the p-value there. It's 0.06. A significant p-value needs to be 0.05 or under. With the attractiveness down here, attractiveness ratings for all 3 of the groups differ significantly from one another. That you can see that that's a significant p-value. You want low p-values in studies. Whereas if you have like a R value, Pearson's R, the coefficient there, you want high R values. You want something above 0.1, but you want low p-values. So even in this study, when they're looking at the facial attraction thing, it was not quite significant because it could just be due to random chance. It was basically 150 men looking at images of 121 women.
Mm-hmm.
But you need to remember, they also rated that the voices of the adult women were the most attractive aspects. And that's important because I can't believe I have to explain this to them, but attraction is not just based on face or eyes. Okay, they literally basically photoshopped out these women's faces, the hair, the body, everything, and just showed them faces. Okay, most men are not attracted to young girls because we recognize attraction is more than just face. Okay, it's voice, it's maturity, it's can I have a relationship with this person? Am I mentally connecting with them? Is physical attraction important? Yes, but there's other aspects of physical attraction. Most men are not going to be attracted to just the silhouette of someone, let alone just their face. So this, again, you got to take this into context here. The actual context is not saying that men are more attracted to girls that are 11 to 14 overall. They're saying they're just, when you look at the faces, they might be more in this one sample size. But again, that could just be due to random chance.
Remind me that this doctor did say during the previous stream that men desire women that are not mature, or girls that are not mature and that are childish, that cannot
Okay,
do
no.
not do, that's what he said, right? He said something along those lines of
Yeah, weird. I mean, but then what does Daniel put up in the stream last time? Again, I didn't find the study until after the last stream.
yeah.
But this is all you put up. Oh, looks like they're more attracted to the adolescents. But what you don't see is the not quite significant p-value. What you don't see is the voice aspect here in the actual graph. Okay. So again, this is cherry picking the data. I don't know if Daniel's actually even read this paper or was aware of where it came from before I pointed this out. He may have been, I don't know. But again, there's a lot more going on when it comes to attraction than just looking at a face. Girls 11 to 14 are developing features that will make them more attractive, but most men recognize they're only in developmental stages. They've not gotten to peak attraction point yet in terms of body type, voice, maturity, mental development. I mean, you just can't reduce attraction to me like face. That's ridiculous. That's not how men necessarily think. And if they do, they probably should see a psychiatrist. So the last thing we're going to address is at the end. Again, Daniel literally just spends the next 40 minutes saying hebephiles exist. Thanks, Daniel. We know. Who cares? This has nothing to do with the fact that we know hebephiles exist. That doesn't mean we think it should be practiced. You got to actually make that case. And if you don't believe me, just watch the stream. I don't care. You'll see the same thing I saw.
Even if it were true that humans are that men are attracted to children, to younger people, younger girls, even if we assume that there is no flaw here at all and that it is entirely correct, that still would not mean that it is therefore good, that it is therefore okay, that it should therefore be allowed. This is fallacious, and he should know this. He should be aware of the fallacy here. It simply doesn't work that way. I could also say, I could stretch as much as I want, as much as they stretch, and say, yeah, look, humans desire possessions. Humans desire lots of things. When we see others have something that we want, we really desire it. Therefore, it should not be wrong for me to go and take whatever I see, whatever belongs to others. You are applying a fallacy here from nature, and also just stretching it very, very much.
If we go back to Bruce Ryan again, he even says that here. To conclude, it should be accepted because of its expression of other species, an instance of a naturalistic fallacy.
There you go.
More in our society, because it has been so judged in other cultures, is to commit the relativistic fallacy.
There you go. Wow.
How hard is this?
Hopeless. This is a hopeless situation. This is a completely hopeless situation. I'm convinced now.
Oh, man. Well, and again, the more Abdullah and Daniel do this, the more they're going to keep just shooting themselves in the foot and, giving us more material to show how bad they are at this. So, I mean, if they want to keep going, I'm going to have some fun. I mean, this is just, as you can see in this stream, it shows that, yeah, it's bad. But yeah, this is the last point I want to address because Daniel's going to refute his whole point from the beginning.
A lot of other studies on this, but this was accepted by the APA. Like, they did not include hebephilia in the DSM-5 for these kinds of reasons. So, this is all that we're claiming. This is all that I claim in the debate review. In the actual debate is that you have this very common, normal attraction of adult males who will be sexually attracted to pubescent minors. But as far as Jones is concerned, like, this is something sick. Like, this is something that is, morally disgusting and unacceptable, and he cracks jokes about it. But this is like the inconvenient truth for liberals. This is inconvenient truth for liberals, and it's something that they were not successfully able to pathologize. Maybe in the future.
This makes no sense. This makes no sense, Daniel. Are you dumb? This makes no sense at all. Why don't we sit here and say, studies show that homosexuality is normal, but Daniel here, he sits down and acts like this is something completely disgusting and reprehensible. Why don't we do the same thing? Why are you not sitting down and thinking a little bit about this, man?
Yeah, and for one thing, this does not support his initial point that hebephilia is just like the majority view among men. Okay, his own paper that he cited, this 1995 Hall paper, they actually hooked apparatuses up to the male member part and judged whether someone was getting attracted to certain images.
Oh.
And what they found is that, no, there was only a minority. The arousal to pedophilic stimuli may motivate some, but not all. If you go to the graphs here, you can see, where's the child one? Yeah, see, more was attracted to the adults, not the children.
Wow.
Okay. So this is the actual paper that Daniel cited.
And it says the exact opposite of what he just claimed.
Yes. This is what they cited in the first one. This is this paper lining up with this graph. And they say, see, the men are most attracted to 14-year-olds. Well, it doesn't. It shows the exact opposite. So for them to get up here and claim that, oh, yeah, this is just normal. Men are just, well, you know what, Daniel? A lot of men are actually attracted to men. Are you going to say that should be allowed too? Or are you just going to commit special pleading here? Yeah. Naturalistic fallacies abound. I mean,
you know what's funny? I did this stream once where I reviewed a debate between Daniel Haqiqatjou and what's his name, T-Jump.
T-Jump,
yeah. I sat down with this guy. His channel is called Digital Gnosis, Nathan. I sat down with him. He's quite a smart guy, very well read on psychology, on philosophy. And I decided let's make a stream where we together review the debate, and I will mark how many times Daniel Haqiqatjou commits a very obvious, a very blatant fallacy, and it was painful. You should go back and watch it. It was painful. I had to stop at some point and be like, okay, I'm not making any more. I'm not marking any more fallacies. I think we're done with this. We get the point.
Yeah. I mean, my mom was forced to do an arranged marriage at 14. My life was ruined by this evil satanic practice. Okay, so yes, here's an example of someone being married and having children as a child bride, I would assume. And again, harm comes out of child marriages, as the studies will support this anecdotal piece of evidence. We just see that. They have not addressed the overwhelming amount of harm. Their entire argument is, well, they might not die, so therefore it's okay. And if they make it to 15 and they start having children, they're probably not going to die, therefore it's okay. This is their argument at this point, and it's just very, very bad. It's horrible to watch. And if their second stream was an attempt to them to try to like fix some of the problems that I pointed out, and they just made it worse for themselves. Like they didn't actually make it better. It would have been better if they just would have did nothing. So I kind of hope they do another stream because they'll make it worse for themselves again.
This is just
Please
your
do
liberal
another
bias.
one. It's just the liberal bias, yeah. But also notice at the end there, Daniel noted that hebephilia was not included as a mental disorder. APA did not include it, but I thought that goes against the liberal bias conspiracy to prevent Muslim men from having underage child brides.
Oh yeah.
But somehow that got through. I thought the vast conspiracy would not allow that. So he basically debunks his whole entire argument there at the end.
Well, they probably have a different agenda there, which is why they,
Oh
which is
yeah.
why they went with that, because that serves a different agenda somewhere else. It's always the evil agenda of the liberals.
Oh yeah. So what is the point of citing studies on attraction? Like all we saw on the stream was they pointed out that they tried to defend their claim that puberty is complete by 12 or 13 by looking at a study on menarche. Okay, was irrelevant, didn't do anything. Then they spent like 2 hours trying to argue that girls aren't going to die in childbirth. Starting first with girls under 15, which is a total debacle. Looking at girls over 15, they cited a paper that didn't even study that, as they admit, and then an hour on attraction studies, like that have nothing to do with the status of child marriage.
In response to him bringing on an anonymous doctor, who I still don't think is an actual physician, what we should do is to just go around random hospitals without arrangement. Just go to doctors, hold a microphone to their face, and quickly ask them: do you think it's okay that children get married? Do you think a child completes puberty at age 12, 13? Just have their responses on camera.
Yeah, the next time I see a doctor, I'll just ask them that and just be like, what? This doctor on this channel, if you want to watch it, said puberty is complete 12 to 13. What do you think of him saying that? Yeah. Should get some doctors to review that. That'd be kind of funny. All right, there you have it. So once again, I will put this back up on my screen to close us out, just so people are once again aware. They spent 4 hours, well, most of the 4 hours, just addressing one aspect of this one point I have underlined. That's it. That's it. They didn't address the levels of divorce, which Daniel was entirely opposed, but he's all in favor of child marriage, even though it leads to more divorce. They didn't deal with domestic abuse. They didn't deal with suicide, psychiatric disorders, parenting skills, complications with newborns, which they seem to have conceded in the last thing. They just basically said, yeah, there are problems like obstetric fistulas, but at least they're not going to die, is their entire argument. And that's their argument for child marriage, ladies and gentlemen. We still, as I pointed out in my opening statement of the debate, Daniel needs to make a moral case for child marriage. To this day, he still hasn't. What is the moral case for child marriage? There's no reason to think it's going to reduce premarital sex, according to the studies you've cited. There's no reason it's going to reduce fornication, according to the narrative reviews on it. You see an increase of STDs. So what's the actual moral case for child marriage? We still don't have one.
I like it, therefore it's okay.
Any final thoughts, AP?
We have said everything pretty much, but this is just. I find it good that you had this debate with him. I find it good that you got introduced to Islamic apologetics by such unfortunate developments. But this is what, I mean, some people might think this is just an extremist position. I do agree with the fact that this is a very radical approach, but it is not necessarily an extremist position. This is actually a very mainstream in Islamic history when it comes to Islamic morality and jurisprudence. So the position that Daniel Haqiqatjou presents on child marriage being permissible and actually good is something that is the mainstream thought on this idea in Islamic jurisprudence and Islamic history. It is only in recent times that many Muslims around the world have begun to kind of disagree with that and to contest that. So the moderate and rather modern parts will object to this, but the traditionalists will still stick to Daniel Haqiqatjou's point. They will not be as outspoken and as harsh and as radical as he is, because I personally think that he probably has a personality problem, and he takes pleasure in just saying abhorrent things. But they will still sit by and silently or implicitly support him and his idea of child marriage. And people should really recognize what a danger and what a sick thing this is. And thank you,
Yeah.
Mike, for going through all of this and putting yourself out there. And I think you did an amazing job.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And yeah, you don't mess with children. Let's be honest. At the end of the day, you don't mess with children. And so if Daniel wants to keep doing this, I'm going to keep doing it because we protect children. It's a Christian virtue. It's a liberal virtue to protect children. And I will keep protecting children if Daniel and his faceless doctor want to keep doing this. And I'll just keep going through the papers they read and showing where the harm is. And they can keep coming back and trying to justify this obviously human rights violation. But you don't mess with children. And Daniel challenged me, so now he's got to deal with me.
Yeah. But he called people who are against child marriage human rights extremists before.
Human rights extremists. I am definitely in favor of human rights. But sorry, I don't know if I got to everyone's super chats. I'll just go through these quickly. Just wanted to support the global liberal hegemony against child marriage. Welcome to the cause, sir. Michael, thank you for speaking the truth and dispelling the lies. May Adonai bless you, and may you continue to bring out the truth. Thank you. Michael, you and your evil liberal conspiracies outlaw underage marriage. AP, this guy, we already addressed that one earlier when we don't think it's the same guy. We addressed this one earlier. IP does the smart person face palm, do it again. I did that a lot. Okay. We must abuse our children or else they'll fornicate. False dichotomy. Yeah, exactly. It is a false dichotomy.
Man.
Daniel Haqiqatjou, peace be upon him, the messenger of Allah, the final seal of Islamic dawah. For every one person he converts to Islam, he's helping 10 to leave. We should praise him. Okay, probably accurate there. And then, I just put this one up. The Muslims don't know what they brought upon themselves by bringing IP into this. He is an oncoming storm. Yeah, and I'm only getting started. I've got so many other papers here I could cite on child marriage. I just haven't gotten to yet because they've not made the arguments. So if they want to keep going, I'll keep going because I got so much more. But appreciate you coming on with me, AP. I really enjoyed getting your initial reactions to this, and we'll do it again some other time.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed looking through it. I'm still stuck on that. I will keep laughing about his suggestion that you want to put children in concentration camps and re-educate them about fornication.
Yeah. Well, it's like if you don't take their extreme child marriage position, you only can take the other extreme craziness. There's nothing in the middle. It's always this false dichotomy nonsense.
It's funny that Daniel Haqiqatjou, he does this all the time. He always argues like that. So, you don't support Islam, you don't support subjugating entire groups of people. So then that means you argue for Western societies where the women cannot take care of their own children, and the children become drug addicts and die in the streets. And then he brings on a doctor who argues exactly the same way as he does. It's fun.
Good Lord. All right. Thanks for coming, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Mike.